I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to this public meeting of the Peel District School Board. As you are able, please stand with us for the land acknowledgement and our national anthem.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que
nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel
des Mississauga de la
Première Nation de Credit.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Quand on bras est porté le pays, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire
Thank you, everyone. Still part of item number 1 is approval of the agenda. You'll notice, trustees, there are 3 requests to delegate that have been approved. So we will add the delegations to the agenda, as you can see with the revised version in front of you, to item 5. So they will be 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, Trustee Crocker, will you move the agenda as amended? Thank you. Trustee Benjamin, will you second this, please? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from trustees regarding the agenda? Okay, all in favor of the amended agenda as amended? All in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you. We do have regrets for this evening's meeting from Trustee David Greene. Item 2 is, item 2 is declaration of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict to declare? Trying to activate this. Lucas? There it is. Thank you for your help.
Through you, Mr. Chair. As I believe item 7.3 involves me, I think it at best to declare a conflict of interest on it.
Okay, thank you. Lucas, can you raise the sound? That was very difficult to hear. Thank you. Okay, so we have one conflict of interest declared. This means that when we get to item 7.3, Trustee Davis will not speak to the motion, answer any questions, or vote on the motion to receive. Moving to section 3 is the chair's request for written questions, notices of motion from trustees. Yes, Trustee Decorum.
Thank you, Chair Cameron. I have a few questions that are somewhat related to the matter before us. My first question is, what is the total amount of money that the Peel District School Board has been billed by the Integrity Commissioner since we have started the position? My second question is, what was the total cost of this particular report and investigation, including the production of the 30-page report, all billable hours, all meetings, and all additional expenses that would have been expensed to the board? And my third question is, what is the number of total complaints that have been filed to the Integrity Commissioner in the year 2019, And how many of those complaints have been resolved or dismissed as of today's date, November 19, 2019?
Okay, thank you. Will you provide a copy of the written questions to Mrs. Baptiste, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving to item 4. This is a special section for receipt. Item 4.1 is retirements. Trustee Marchant, will you move this to the floor, please? Thank you. Trustee K. Mcdonald, will you second this, please? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? All in favor? Carried. Item 5 is the delegations we referred to earlier. 5.1 is a delegation by Faraz Salim regarding administration protocol and meeting scheduling. Please come forward, sir. Or is Faraz Salim here? Okay. So we'll give our delegator a little time to get here, and we'll move to 5.2, delegation by Cody Voucher regarding letter to trustees dated November 14th, 2019. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, and members of the community. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak directly to this body and address a number of issues. I know that the past few months hasn't been easy for everyone. However, the past few weeks have been one of the most consequential times for this board in a long time. We've seen dysfunction, a lack of compassion, and more dangerously, a breakdown in leadership. However, we've also seen the courageous members of the community, like those who are behind me, advocating for a change and an opportunity to correct the wrong. Because to me, it doesn't matter how high the mountains are, how wide the rivers stretch, or how deep the oceans reach. We have an opportunity to take the mistakes made, reverse the dangerous precedent, and chart a new path for our children so that they will never have to see the ugly truth of anti-Black racism and all forms of racism in our community. And nothing is more important than those in positions of power like yourselves to stomp it out. And that's your responsibility tonight, to be on the right side of history and to show our children and the public that you take this issue seriously. In my letter to all of you, I gave an opportunity to address last week's canceled meeting. And I respectfully ask so because I believe that the public is getting mixed messages. As we all know, the official press release dated November 8th, 2019 states that the meeting was canceled due to the ministry's review of the board. But as covered in the Toronto Star, the board had planned to cancel the meeting well in advance. So it was with that that I moved to the question portion of my delegation. How much time do I have left, Mr. Chair?
About 7 minutes.
About 7 minutes. Okay, so is there anybody on the board that would like to clarify their absence as to why they didn't want to show, or they notified the chair that they would not be attending the meeting?
So, Mr. Voucher, you would direct your questions through the chair. That's the process,
Okay.
please. Secondly, the process involved in a delegation is you would present your position, your questions, your concerns, and your questions here. And then we would take those and we would respond to those at the next regular meeting, the one after this next regular meeting of the board.
Right.
And so it's not really a question period in dialogue with the
Could I
members here.
ask these questions during the public question period portion?
You could, but you
Yeah.
asked for a delegation opportunity.
Yeah, so I finished my delegation. I do have questions, so I'll come back for public question period to ask the questions.
Okay, so this is not a delegation that we're responding to.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. 5.3 is a delegation by Idris Oyugu regarding McCrimmon Middle School and cancellation of November 13, 2019 board meeting. Is Idris here? I would go back to 5.1 to ask if Faraz Salim is here. So seeing neither of our other two delegators here, I'll move on to item 7. 7.1 is the Peel District School Board Policy 51, titled Human Rights. This policy has been revised and it's here for our approval. This revision has been vetted through the Trustee Review Committee and the Leadership Council. Trustee Andrews, will you move this? Thank you. Trustee DeCruz, will you second it? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? All in favor? Carried. Item 7.2 is Appeal District School Board Policy 68, Criminal Background Checks. This policy has been revised and is also here for our approval. This revision has been also vetted through the Trustee Review Committee and the Leadership Council. Trustee Sohi, will you move this, please? Thank you. Trustee B. Mcdonald, will you second it? Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? All in favor? Carried. 7.3 is the report from the Integrity Commissioner regarding the Trustee Code of Conduct. Vice Chair Lawton, will you move the report to the floor? Thank you. Trustee Benjamin, will you second this, please? Thank you. Now the report is on the floor, and before I ask our Integrity Commissioner to summarize her role, I would like to review a few procedural matters with trustees and members of the public. Prior to our formal introduction of the Integrity Commissioner's report, I would like to review these procedural matters. The Education Act requires that a member of a Board of Trustees shall, among their other responsibilities, comply with the Board's Code of Conduct. The Trustee Code of Conduct establishes and publicly outlines the behavioral expectations that we've established for our role. The Peel District School Board's bylaw D23 states that members shall adhere to the Code of Conduct for members of Peel District School Board and shall agree to fulfill the duties and responsibilities of members of the Peel District School Board. The Peel Board's Code of Conduct is publicly available on our website. Appendix 1 of the Peel Board's Code of Conduct deals with the selection, appointment, and jurisdiction of the Integrity Commissioner. Section 3 outlines the role and function of the Integrity Commissioner as providing advice to trustees about the application of the Code of Conduct, board policies and procedures, and complaint protocol. Providing general information to trustees about their duties and obligations under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Reviewing and making inquiries related to complaints made about trustees in relation to the Code of Conduct and the complaint protocol pursuant to the complaint protocol. Providing educational programs to trustees on issues of ethics and integrity, maintaining custody and control of their complaint and inquiry files, and on completion of their term, transfer any open files related to ongoing matters to the incoming Integrity Commissioner, and providing such other duties respecting ethical and conduct matters as assigned by the Board. The Integrity Commissioner shall carry out their duties independently. It is an arm's-length office that is accountable to and reports to the Board of Trustees and looks into allegations of inappropriate conduct by trustees. These may be raised by a trustee, staff member, or member of the community. The Integrity Commissioner does not have the jurisdiction over complaints about board staff. Appendix 2 of the Trustee Code of Conduct contains the complaints protocol and establishes the role of the Integrity Commissioner, plays in receiving, investigating, resolving, and reporting on complaints alleging a breach of the Code of Conduct by a trustee. Throughout these documents, there is an emphasis on the independence of the role of the Integrity Commissioner. The Code of Conduct and its appendices do not require that an Integrity Commissioner report to the board in the event that a complaint is dismissed in the ordinary course other than in an annual or periodic report. This report before us tonight would normally not come to board, except that this is a matter of exceptional circumstances as per section 6.6F of the complaint protocol. On account of the close public scrutiny and that an incident in the realm of private conduct was brought to the court of public opinion, the Integrity Commissioner was of the view that the facts and her findings needed to be shared with the board in open session. This report is for information purposes only, and the board will receive the report to ensure it is recorded as such in the minutes. Voting to receive this information item does not mean the board agrees or disagrees with the report. The Integrity Commissioner's report does not include recommendations to the board, only a finding of no contravention of the Trustee Code of Conduct. As such, there are no recommendations for trustees to accept, reject, or amend to impose a sanction, as outlined in the complaint protocol. Outside of receiving this information report so that it can be captured in the minutes of this supplementary meeting of the board, no other action can be taken by the Board of Trustees. I would like to introduce the board's Integrity Commissioner, Sandia Cody. And yes, have you activated this? Is it on? I can't see. Okay. Commissioner Cody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, you stole my thunder. I was going to introduce myself with a preface as to my role, and I will drive home the point that my role as Integrity Commissioner to the Peel District School Board is to ensure transparency and accountability at the board level, meaning amongst the Board of Trustees. On October the 16th, 2019, my office received a formal complaint filed by Trustee Brad Mcdonald, and the complaint was filed against Trustee Will Davies, the respondent, in relation to his use of the reference McCriminal in place of McCrimmon, referring to McCrimmon Middle School. And the question became whether in referencing the school, using that term, did he violate his code of conduct? As a result of an investigation and on an objective analysis of the facts, I made a finding of no violation of the applicable sections of the Code of Conduct. Investigation reports must come to the board when the commissioner believes that there's a penalty or remedial action necessary, and when there's a finding of no violation, as in this instance, but where there are exceptional circumstances, as in this instance, it is my view that the report must be brought to the board further to, and to reiterate, Mr. Chair, section 6.6, bracket F of the protocol. When I say exceptional circumstances, it's in the public interest that the public understand the findings in the report. That said, the report is in written form. The findings are in that report. The inquiry steps are outlined in that report. And I'm only present to affirm what Mr. Chair already said and to outline my role as the IC. This is the first time I'm meeting the public, and generally it's not my manner to appear in a public board meeting, but I felt that it was necessary given all circumstances in this case. One more additional piece. Members of the board need to be reminded that an integrity commissioner is assigned to independently, and I'm going to emphasize this word, independently, conduct inquiries in response to complaints. I am bound by the complaint protocol framework And to perform appropriately, I follow the marching orders outlined in that framework. I do this in an independent manner, and as such, the Integrity Commissioner has included only the information in the investigation report that is necessary to understand the findings. In making this decision about what information to include, the Integrity Commissioner has been guided by the duties set out in Appendix F, Section 3 of the Code of Conduct, as well as 6.5 of the Complaint Protocol. But given the public interest around this matter, given the community upset, I need to clarify that this report in no way negates the existence of systemic racism or racism targeted at varying Black communities or at visible minorities. Nor does this report negate the existence of discrimination generally, systemic or otherwise, against disparate marginalized groups or the Indigenous. To deny racism and discrimination would be a fiction, and to address and ensure against systemic racism and discrimination is a laudable enterprise, but one appropriately assigned to other venues. My job is to find out and discover whether any action, and in this instance, this trustee, whether his actions were racist and thus violated his governing code of conduct. My mandate is not to investigate broader issues of systemic racism. In doing my job, I'm confident that based on a rigorous investigation, weighing the circumstantial evidence and the credibility of relevant witnesses, and an objective analysis of all available facts, a reasonable inference was drawn to conclude there is no nexus between the criminal reference and a racist act on the part of Trustee Will Davies, and as such, he did not violate his governing code of conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, when we have a motion on the floor, we also have opportunities for any trustee to ask questions, and our protocol is 5 minutes per trustee and only one time for each motion. So I'll open the floor now to questions from trustees with a reminder of the 5-minute limit. I have my trustee, different word trustee, cell phone to keep us, this, as a group, we are very good at monitoring ourselves for 5-minute limits, and I appreciate that going into tonight as well. So I see technology is a wonderful thing when it works. Thank you, Lucas. Trustee Noka Dakrub.
Chair, I'd like to clarify that it's not just questions, it's also comments.
Yes,
we've
yes,
done
yes,
for-
yes, that's true.
Thank you very much. I don't necessarily have questions. I read the report a number of times, and I'm not going to receive this report. In fact, I wholeheartedly reject it, and there are a number of reasons why. There are a number of concerns that stood out to me as I read this report. First of all, I can't really understand what the big deal between the McCriminal spelling and the McCriminal spelling. I couldn't really, that's lost on me. To me, when I hear the word McCriminal, I don't really know what the spelling difference is, but it is what it is. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit sick, so bear with me. On page 46, it says, of relevance, our office is able to confirm that both past and present, it is common practice for students in PDSB to assign pejorative puns on their schools. For example, pot credit in place of port credit, meadow jail in place of meadowvale, agony Taylor in place of Agnes Taylor, and so forth. As a trustee for one of the schools mentioned in this section, I'm quite offended. Meadowvale Secondary School is a school I proudly represent. Meadowvale, Mississauga, Ontario is a community I proudly represent. It's also where I have chosen to live and raise my only daughter, and I find the reference Meadow Jail very offensive. And in fact, if students are using it in schools, I would expect that administration would provide them with guidance not to. Am I to understand from this report that as an elected official, I can call my own school a name I find offensive? So I find this section completely problematic. And to be very, very clear, referencing Meadowvale as Meadow Jail is absolutely not appropriate. On page 37, the student breakdown says, the number under McCrimmon Middle School, says, although exact figures are unavailable at this time, the makeup of McCrimmon Middle School is approximately 70% South Asian, 25% Black, and 5% white. And I understand that we needed to get some understanding of the background of the school. But if the figures aren't available, I'm not sure how we could come up with a breakdown. So, I mean, do we just guesstimate? Or is there a particular, I guess I do have a question. Is there a particular way to come up with a breakdown? No? That's fine, I'll move on. So on page 37 as well, it says between the time period where the McCriminal comment was said on June 4th, 2019 and October 30th, 2019, our office found no reports or evidence of harm caused to McCrimmon students, nor student complaints reported to school administration or social workers or the climate team centered on the comment McCriminal. It further goes to state, upon release of the director's statement, 3 students inquired within the school's senior staff about the term. I'm not exactly sure what no evidence of harm means, but the report mentions that only 3 students inquired, but I know that I have spent hours upon hours listening to public testimony from members of the community, many of whom either sent their kids to McCrimmon or even taught themselves at McCrimmon, who found this to be problematic and offensive. So are we just to ignore public testimony on the issue and believe that there's only 3 people who were ever concerned? So, I'm deeply appalled by the report in its entirety, and in my opinion, elected officials are held to a higher moral standard than your average teenager. Our job as trustees, as a board of education, is to empower students. The Peel District School Board's mission is to inspire success, confidence, and hope. And comments such as these, and this particular report of explaining how, I guess there's no wrongdoing, inspire none of that.
Noka.
Okay.
5 minutes. Thank you.
I ask that you give me an opportunity to finish.
How much more do you have to go?
Not much, I promise.
Tell me how much. 2 minutes?
4 paragraphs.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. McCrimmon Middle School serves children who are in grades 6, 7, and 8. Children who are in grade 6 are 11 years old. In grade 7, 12 years old. In grade 8, 13 years old. To refer to a school that serves children as young as 11 years old as McCriminal is not appropriate. To refer to a school that serves predominantly Black and brown population as McCriminal is just wrong. If it's a joke, it's not funny, and it's not okay. To say that no harm is done is completely inaccurate. Does the board really believe that all the members of the community before us would be coming here, meeting after meeting, spending their time with us, if no harm is done? I'm sorry, but if no harm is done, this boardroom would be empty. To receive this report would be to normalize inappropriate comments and to tell students, staff, and more so elected officials that it's acceptable to offend others as long as it's a joke. I am not going to receive this report, and I'm hoping that my colleagues would do the same. There are ways to move forward from this. This is not one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Integrity Commissioner Coley, would you like to respond?
very quickly, thank you, Mr. Chair. The reality is that sometimes either to defend a fellow trustee or to advance a personal grudge against a trustee, members may seek to undermine the findings
please.
by asking, members may seek to undermine the findings of an integrity commissioner, and in this instance, question the integrity of an integrity commissioner about the lines of inquiry undertaken or the analysis that led to the finding, which is happening right now. It has happened across Ontario. I'm not the first integrity commissioner to be questioned, and yet and there's no need for the heckling. Thank you very much. The reality is that an integrity commissioner, I was hired by the PDSB as an expert. I'm an independent person. I have integrity.
Order, excuse me.
Point of order, please, Madam Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
stop. If you just hold on, I need to do this now, because we cannot conduct a meeting where there is heckling, yelling, interrupting people who are speaking. We're trying to get at an issue and allow the process to help us get there. So I'm going to say this now around meeting decorum. Members of the public are asked to maintain decorum for the duration of the board meeting. The effectiveness of this meeting is a joint responsibility. As chair, it is my duty to maintain a respectful environment. Please work with me in maintaining order and ensuring that the board business can be conducted here. Because if I'm unable to maintain order, the board may have to recess to another room in order to complete its business. And we do not want to do this. This should be in public, and I'm asking you please to work with me to allow us to get to the end of this agenda deeply and completely. Complete your thought, Commissioner, or are you done?
No, thank you. I am an independent person, a person of integrity and skill, asked to investigate misconduct at the board level. And you do not have to agree nor disagree with the findings. Whatever it is, the fact remains that when you go behind and question the line of inquiry and the investigation of an integrity commissioner, challenging those lines of inquiry, it is unfair, and it undermines the overall impact, the accountability framework, and the ability to elevate transparency at the board level by questioning the office of the integrity commissioner. And I find when a trustee does that in the public realm, they are undermining the integrity of my office and the integrity of my role.
Point of order.
And a point of order should be taken with respect to that
What is the
Thank
point?
you.
I did not say anything about the integrity commissioner. Everybody can say that. It's on public record. I have concerns about what is brought forth in front of me at a public board meeting, as a public report. I have every right to ask questions and to have concerns and raise concerns.
Order.
About I did not once even say the word integrity commissioner in everything that I have said. All I've said is I've raised concerns with some of not the findings, some of the things that are mentioned in the report, which I have every right to do.
Okay.
And it is a public matter, it's in public, it's a public report, so I have every right to do that.
Thank you. Integrity Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, perhaps Integrity Commissioner was not mentioned, but the Integrity Commissioner's report was very much mentioned, and questioned was the line of inquiry, the line of investigation, and the content of the report. This report will not be re-adjudicated in this forum. It speaks for itself. It's in writing. The findings are clear, and the finding is there is no connection between Trustee Davies and what he referenced, speaking about his own children and the student profile of McCrimmon Middle School. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee John Marchant, you have the floor. There you go.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair, and thank you for your work on this, Commissioner. I too was somewhat confused by the amount of time spent in the report on the difference between McCriminal and McCriminal. I also had a question in terms of professional judgment. Given that there has been a significant outpouring of concern over the comment, is it not reasonable to presume that the making of the comment in and of itself, regardless of the intent, was unprofessional? I go to act of conflicts of interest, where the perceived conflict of interest is enough to declare it as a conflict of interest. So where a comment here, notwithstanding intent and notwithstanding the fact it was an overheard, a private and overheard conversation, I do have some concerns about material in here that I think we as a board need to address ourselves. I'm very sorry that this had to get to this level, because I think there were better channels to get to. But aside from that, how we can find that a comment which is clearly upsetting to the community, and I think rightfully so, and reasonably ought to have been known to be upsetting, can be determined to be not. So I'm just not sure and how the spelling actually reflects on that, or the importance of that.
Thank you. It's a question. Would you like to answer, Commissioner?
Thank you. I will not answer except to say refer to the report and my analysis on a pun being a play on words as opposed to a moniker. There's no evidence, and this is within the report, Mr. Chair, Mr. Trustee, of the genesis of the word McCriminal linking to the student profile of McCrimmon. That evidence did not come to the fore. And therefore, the only way to answer you is for you to look at the report. It's in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You good, Trustee Marchant?
Yes, I think. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next is Trustee Balbir Sohi. Just wait, Balbir, for the microphone. Lucas, thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Through you, Chair, I am a bit confused having read the report, which was expected to put an end to this hurtful incident. Now I see it's even going into a new direction. The report has now boiled it down to the term McCriminal from McCriminal. So the report was supposed to address the hurt of the community, and I don't see this going to do so, and it ignores to take the account how the community is hurt, and also having one word said in the star, and then now we are getting into a different direction by having another spellings of the same. I'm not sure how we are looking into that. Even when it is being said in a trustee position at that place, still we are saying that it is not unprofessional. So I'm really confused with this findings. Thank you. And I'm sorry I won't be able to receive this report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee K. Mcdonald.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I have a question with a yes or no answer, please. Did you speak to any black staff at McCrimmon Middle School? Or any black students at McCrimmon Middle School?
I'm not going to be interrogated about my report or my investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. This report was supposed to be a complaint filed against Mr. Davies for referring to McCrimmon Middle School as McCriminal. The initial complaint has McCriminal. I'm not sure when it morphed and the I became an O. It reads like an attempt to publicly discredit me, to lay some sinister and ulterior motives to my actions, to discredit me, but most important, to perpetuate anti-black racism in the Peel District School Board, and once more victimize black staff, black students, black families, and the black community. I understand the history and the context of how McCrimmon got its funny term, as you refer to it on G7, page 7. It started back when the school opened and the Jane and Finchers were invading Brampton. That's what I was told by a staff member. Unlike, well, you have not commented, but I did interview black staff and black criminals. I've heard in this boardroom black staff and black criminals, black students from McCrimmon Middle School bear their pain to this board. So it was not, it didn't affect anybody. I would like to address some glaring things that I don't understand. Well, it was already said about the term, because the McCrimmon term was never sent to me until November the 4th. That's the first time in all email exchanges that I heard that. I want to know if some people laugh at saying McCrimmon and they're of good character, they're jovial, it's okay. The picture of our Prime Minister in blackface he was laughing and smiling. He apologized. It was not okay. If a jolly trustee in good character comes and calls me a nigger, is that okay? The respondent was not having a private conversation. We were having lunch. I was involved in the conversation. You may want to dismiss me. I said it in my report. I'm not sure how you determined that I was not telling the truth and he was, but it was not private.
Order, please.
The trustee never said McCriminal. I heard McCriminal. I spoke about calling kids criminals. He never corrected me, not even once. It's not funny. It's not funny. Punny. It is hurtful. It sends the wrong message to a board who's supposed to be advocating for, one, bullying, for not name calling, and making sure that our kids feel safe. It's absolutely false to dismiss and diminish this conversation. And in 24B, you said that no one heard the term, to 24B, but I know that one witness did hear the I in the word, and that is actually irrelevant. At the end of the day, it is not funny. Hurting people is not funny. I also said, I'm not even sure that the breakdown with the percentage of kids, it's still a high percentage of black students, because if you look at the total population of Brampton, that school is considered to have a high black population, and definitely a high racialized population. And as a black woman born in Jamaica, I was mortified by the harm caused by this jovial comment by a jovial man of good character. Did you bother to find out about my character? You're not even listening to me? That's fine. I'm also the mother of 4 black children, one whom is here and some are on their way. They attended Agony Taylor, and that is a hurtful term for them. And for you to include it in the report is a slap in the face of our black students. You can ask her after the meeting if she likes that term. I know my kids reel and they're traumatized by this reference. It's only the tip of stigmatizing black students. When people have power and privilege, it's okay to be assigning pejorative puns to school.
You had 5 minutes.
Even in our journey, I ask for 2 more minutes, please.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
fine.
Reconciliation, we acknowledge the hurtful legacy of these puns. By extension of the hypothesis put forward, it is said that the impact is irrelevant. I just look in the audience and would tell you it's not irrelevant, unless you're saying the community is not irrelevant. People are called the N-word all the time, and I laugh at them. Our students have come before this board. Up until last week, they were talking about the N-word. And again, it is laughed upon when our students, black students, are called, because the reaction to other students is not to dismiss the hurt and harm they encounter. I also find this report is riddled with hostility towards me, which I will handle in another forum, because you may have a lot of skills, but to be questioning my motive, to be calling me disingenuous and baseless accusation. As a Black woman that lives in a system where my kids have been subjected to racism, I find that insulting and harmful and traumatic.
Order, please.
And there's obviously huge gaps in anti-Black racism in this board. And this report highlights what I've been trying to do for the last 5 years in my journey in this board, which is to bring attention to the suffering, the hurt, and the harm that is happening to Black children that seems to be okay with this board and at all levels of this board. And I will not be silenced, and I will not let any code or any fear determine, because I am determined to make sure
2 minutes,
that
you
my
are up. Thank you.
grandchildren don't go through this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other trustees who would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I will now call the vote. Yes?
I'd like a recorded vote, please.
We will have a recorded vote.
Thank you.
I will now call the vote. A recorded vote is requested. A simple majority is required to receive this report. Of the 10 trustees eligible to vote, that would mean 6 are required. So I will call the vote. All those in favor of receipt of the Integrity Commissioner's report, please stand. Order, please. Order.
Cameron, Lawton, Andrews, Crocker.
And all those opposed to receipt of this report, please stand. Order, please. Thank you. We can't hear the names.
Trustee Sohi, Decorum, Marchant, Mcdonald.
Are there any trustees abstaining in the vote? Ms. Fernandez? Oh, sorry, yes? Students? Could you turn your mic on so we can hear you call their names, please?
Student Trustee Aurora, Student Trustee Nar.
Thank you.
6 votes in favor, 4 opposed, and 2 non-binding student trustees abstaining.
Therefore, the motion is carried. Moving on to item, thank you, Commissioner Cody, you may leave now. Moving on to item 10 is comment, sorry. Oh, yes, I understand one of our delegators is here now. We'd like to welcome you. Is Idris Orgu? I'm sorry. Yes, please come to the microphone. And,
thank you, sir.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'll start this by reading a few things here. This week is Bullying Awareness and Prevention Week, which is to help promote safe schools, positive learning environment. This is all happening simultaneously with the Integrity Commissioner telling us through the report that it's acceptable to convert a word that marks an originally marginalized group as long as you can cleverly play with words. This is an effort to reduce the impact to the affected individuals. However, in this case, the the individual, in this case, the black community. The word that I'm referring to, it's criminal with an AL changed to criminal. Since I've been coming here, this is the first time hearing that word. And the impact of that is what you're seeing here. So to minimize it as if it's not important is completely disingenuous. Before I proceed, the question I have through the chair is if the Integrity Commissioner has had any kind of course on anti-black racism.
So that you're asking that through me, but the Integrity Commissioner has been released.
Okay, but I think it's important to note that.
However, if your question is recorded, and we're also going to ask you for your notes to be given to the executive assistant of the director, then that is when we will get that answer for you.
Okay, but I must finish. If she hasn't, it will be a shame, and that report should be non-binding. This weekend on CTV News, the Education Minister, Stephen Leche, indicated that in cases of bullying, those who commit the bullying are at fault. However, those who stand by are complicit and just as guilty, and shame on them. Schools are encouraged to use the opportunity of Bullying Awareness Week to explain the different forms of bullying, e.g. physical and verbal. In light of the inconsistency of the Integrity Commissioner's report, we question the capability of the PDSB schools to do so, and it's apparent to us that they are in fact perpetrators on our black children and the victims. I have a question, and through the chair.
Yes.
The timing of this meeting. Since I've been coming here, it's always been at 7:30. So we're concerned when the report came out, this meeting was scheduled at 5:30, and it's quite clear that most people, that's about the time they're going to be leaving work. I think your job is to make it public so that members of the public can be present while the delegation goes on, while you guys do your job. But putting it at 5:30 has made it rather difficult for people.
So if I can...
I personally believe, and most of the people here, that it was tactical, but not necessarily to work with the community, because right now you're preventing the community from partaking in this process.
So I can honestly answer that this was not tactical. No one thought or said anything out loud about let's do this way and let's impact people. This meeting time was a placeholder in our calendars for what we call a trustee information session. And that's a session we host for trustees, for training, for opportunities to learn and grow. But the Integrity Commissioner delivered her report and said, I want this public and I want this meeting to be held and I want it as sooner than possible because I want to be transparent and I want the public to be a part of this. So when we looked at our calendars, this was a spot we would be here. In addition, there's a 7 o'clock SEAC meeting, Special Education Advisory Committee meeting. And so these times were simply coordinated around when trustees would be available. We wouldn't all be available necessarily at 7 o'clock or 7:30 to continue this. So I can commit to you that nobody thought of that as a way to stop people from getting here. Maybe we didn't think it through around well, what about our public that would need to get here from, I could honestly say I didn't raise that question, and I didn't hear it raised from anybody else either, so I apologize if there were people who have really been inconvenienced to try to get here, or people aren't here because the time was not suitable for them.
Okay, I'll continue. So the IC found no evidence. I know some of this have been said before. The IC found no evidence in harm caused to the criminal student. No students complain. E.g., incidences of rape and abuse of women do not reflect the statistics. Does it mean that fewer women rape or abuse compared to the national average don't occur? We know this. So if she actually did not go to the community or did not solicit the help of members of the community in arriving at that conclusion, And in particular, if it's in question, if she's had any kind of anti-black racism, why should we believe this report? It is laughable, and it's a slap on the collective faces of the people here and those not here. One thing I'm going to say before as I continue, for those of you that did not stand, history will judge you. In the pursuit of human rights, in the pursuit of what our marginalized communities have been going through, some people did not stand with us. You go back to the 60s, to the 50s, we were being laughed at. But you come today, yes, we've moved ahead. However, there's still a lot of work to be done. When I look at the composition of the board, for anybody to look at this report and say, I'm going to accept it, it makes me question your motive. It makes me question if you're open. It makes me question those of you who stood up, who have declined acceptance of this report. We stand by you. We will recognize you. And for those of you who have refused, history will not judge you. In my presence here, for all the times I've been coming in here, Mr. Chair, welcome, because this is the first time we're seeing you. As critical as this case is, this is the first time we're seeing you. The composition of this board does not reflect our community. However, it does not mean you cannot be on the right side of history. This issue is bigger than the originator. The originator may be the nicest person, but it doesn't mean the originator could not have made mistakes. Accepting his mistakes would have been a lot easier. Not accepting it, prolonging it, and the board acting as a cover-up is what has made this what it is today. We as a people are going to continue to fight this. We will not relent, and we are asking for some changes on this board. Whether here, through election, or through the ministry, we will fight this to the end. If you go on and schedule the board meetings at 2 p.m., 2 p.m., 1 p.m., we will be here. The truth will always be the truth. For those who have stood to renounce this report, we salute you. This report does not reflect the truth. I think it's non-binding, and I think if you are looking at members of the public here, and you can see the pain, the hurt is palpable. If this does not resonate with you to make you change your mind, history will judge you. We will still remain. We will continue to fight. This is not a Will Davis issue. This is a board-wide issue. And from what we have seen so far, it seems like you have a tight ship you're controlling. Some trustees, some board members here feel like they cannot express themselves. Some are scared. But here's the question. What are you afraid of? What are you really afraid of? People have been in this position before. People will come. They will come and go. But what you have done will be remembered. And we shall remember. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. We need to respond to your delegation as not verbally here, but we have a responsibility with delegations to respond. And if you have notes, sir, would you please leave them with our executive assistant, Mrs. Baptiste? And at the December 10th meeting, we will have your response. Thank you.
Through the chair, please. I know we do give this and we get responses. Of what importance and significance are the responses if they're not implemented? Why do we go through this motion? So I've done this, and I'm doing it again, and some other people are going to be doing it again. I get replies, but what's the point if it's not going to be implemented? Are we willing to change or we're not? That's the question we should be asking ourselves.
I think the letter, in response formally, will show you some responsibilities that we are taking and moving forward with, and we would welcome your participation and involvement to help us be better. Could I just add something personally, because you insinuated something about me that I wasn't here, and I wonder if you know why not.
Yes, I somehow know, but
No,
at
you
the
don't.
same, sir,
You
may I
don't.
finish? You asked me the question.
Yeah, but you don't know.
Well, but there's evidence that you've been attending other events.
No, what?
There are evidence that you, listen, we can talk about this. I did not mean, I just told you I have not seen you. And Sue Lawton has been receiving, she's been at this. But my point is here, we're welcoming you back and we're hoping that you can encourage your people to continue to stand for the truth. But based on the hands that I saw that are accepting this report, it is evidence that the truth is not what we're seeking.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our next delegation has arrived as well. Faraz Salim, if you are here, please come to the microphone and welcome.
Thank you for making an exception and allowing me to speak. It's would have liked to do this before the vote, but I have tons of questions, and I would, as my friend here before me, like to welcome you to the meeting and also welcome all the trustees who actually made quorum today and not the quorum in the last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So,
thank you. Would you please get on with your delegation?
Of course, yes,
Thank you.
for sure. I want to talk about, I got a response from you because I had asked specifically all the trustees why they did not come to the meeting, the last meeting. And I will quote, "In light of the ministry review and the fact that a number of trustees had indicated in advance that they would not be able to attend and therefore there wouldn't be quorum, the decision was made to cancel the regular meeting of the board on November 13th. So this is a note I received. Now I have tons of questions. Can someone please let me know as to why that meeting was canceled? And maybe you touched on it a little bit, but is there precedent within the board to cancel publicly scheduled meetings ahead of time? Do you always ask for availability beforehand, and then you make sure that you check that there's enough, and then you cancel? Is there a list available to the concerned citizens here of previously canceled board meetings because of lack of quorum? And in fact, can you give us the official reason for the cancellation of the board meeting on November 13th? And was it the ministry review or was it the lack of attendance of the trustees? If it's the ministry review, then can you please confirm that the ministry review is now complete and we can have a meeting today? And if not, then why this meeting was put together at such a convenient time for everyone to attend? And if it wasn't the ministry review, then the lack of attendance, can you please let the public know as to what the procedure is for accepting availability of trustees before the meeting? The taxpayers pay for 12 of you to represent us. And as far as I know, that 7 make quorum. And I find it very, to be very blunt, very suspicious of the board to try to deflect meetings at the last minute without letting the public know. And also find it very difficult to understand why 7 trustees weren't available for the meeting. In my mind, I think these are just deflecting strategies to cancel and deflect the crowd and the concerned citizens who actually want to understand more about this matter. I would also like to know if the meeting today is a legal scheduled meeting that is part of the agenda, and anything that's been actioned on today, is it all within the board's protocol? And this meeting, as you'd said earlier, was supposed to be a meeting for something else, but all of a sudden it became a board meeting. But is this a legal meeting that you're actually voting on this report? And I must remind you that the elections are just a few years away, right? The public is informed and aware, and, we will have a long memory of what's taking place here. I also want to talk about the Integrity Commissioner report. In regards to the most recent report by the Integrity Commissioner, who is not here now, I will be writing to her directly to also ask questions. But the dates are wrong. There's holes in the report, and I will leave the information here for our executive assistant to look at and respond, but the dates are wrong. The quotation of information is wrong. In section 21, actually on page 21, section 8, she claims that the trustee did not act in an unprofessional way, as the comments were made during a time when the trustee was not engaged in trustee-related activities. I would also like to know from the board, was it okay for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to wear blackface when he was a young teenager? And would the Integrity Commissioner at that time also suggest that he'd actually done that during his off time and it's not something that ties in with his conduct? Is it also okay for firefighters and doctors to say, not going to help them, I'm off time, not my responsibility? If the trustees are only held accountable for their conduct while doing trustee-related duties, then is the section 612 of your Code of Conduct, which says, trustees are expected to perform their duties in the office and arrange their private affairs in a manner that promotes public confidence. So section 612 again, trustees are expected to perform their duties in the office and arrange their private affairs in a manner that promotes public confidence. If this was the municipality of Brampton, where Code of Conduct Rule 15 says, members shall conduct themselves with appropriate decorum at all times. Then shockingly, does the board have another barometer to gauge the trustees' behavior on and off trustee-like responsibilities? In addition, can the board also please explain the hiring of the Integrity Commissioner? I understand that the motion was put forth by Vice Chair at that time, Suzanne Nurse, back in September 2018, and the intention of the Integrity Commission was to allow the public to have full confidence in the operation of the trustees and to hold them accountable to the highest standards. There was an article in Mississauga News dated September 19th, 2018, and there's a quote from our trustee, Brad Mcdonald, that says, "We have seen a lot of boards run into trouble," as well as that same article quoted Trustee David Greene saying, "The Integrity Commissioner will ensure that standards stay in place and we stay focused on student success." I don't see a lot of that here right now. With the deflection of meetings and with meetings being called last minute at times, which make it harder for the public to attend, I question the board's governance and ability to hold themselves accountable to the highest standards. Can you enlighten us as to how the Integrity Commissioner was hired, who does she report to, and what are the options available for the public if we are not satisfied with the decisions made by the Integrity Commissioner? Thank you.
Thank you, and as you said you would, if you would leave your notes with the executive assistant, we will respond.
Response December 3rd?
December 10th.
December 10th, okay.
Thank you. We don't have enough time to answer this. Board package has to go out. So because we were had some moving parts with the agenda to try to accommodate the delegations, I'm going to go to item 10 now, which is comments or questions from board members. I will start with our student trustees. Trustee Nar, Trustee Aurora.
Thank you, and through your chair, could I make a comment on the theme of bullying prevention and awareness? Would that be all right? Okay, thank
Yes, sure.
you. I just want to say that As someone who was bullied as a young child, I absolutely know the pain and hardships that go through by being bullied. And I also recognize the importance of the support that I received from my teachers and my community at the time that I was being bullied. And so on this week of bullying prevention and bullying awareness, I want all the students in the audience and all the students across Peel to recognize that Prableen, Trustee Nar, and myself and the rest of the trustees at this board will always be there as a support system that you guys can look up to and you can definitely talk to as well. And I also want you all to recognize that you belong here and hate doesn't. There's no room for hate within this board and within our education systems. And so I know that Peel we tweeted out the 5 steps for taking action, and I hope that you guys can all choose to take action as well. Someone mentioned earlier that Minister Leche also mentioned that bystanders, being a bystander is just as worse as being a bully, and it is shameful for us to not do anything as a bystander. And so Peel has very clearly, thanks to our communication team and the rest of our board, has listed out 5 actions that I would like to read out. So step 1, stop the action. It's our responsibility as a bystander to say stuff like, hey, stop, and intervene, because then only we can start doing the other steps. Step 2 is to name it. Whether it's a racist comment or an expression of hatred, it's important for us to take that step. Step 3, explain the impact and the harm to the bully as well as those who are being bullied so that they can recognize that what was happening was actually an issue, because sometimes those who are bullied don't know that they're being bullied and they start to accept the fact that this is a societal norm. And so step 4, ask the person causing harm to change their behavior, because education is the first step to change. And so if we can educate those who are bullying, then we will actually start creating change. And so something that we can say is, next time, think before you speak, because words do hurt. And finally, support the person that was harmed. It is important that we follow up with those who are bullied by asking them and sympathizing with them, such as asking questions like, how can I support you, and whether you're okay. And so just to conclude, I really want to reiterate that Trustee Nar and myself are always here for any of the students across the board that do feel that they're being bullied. And I really hope that you all feel like you belong here. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Crocker. Trustee K. Mcdonald.
Thank you. I just had a few points I wanted to finish saying. My time was up. I think is extremely important to hear, because I spoke to a student, and to quote the student, at sporting events, other students use the word criminal to shame, embarrass, get under our skin, to humiliate us, make us not do well, and to diminish them. And to me, that's a form of bullying. And it's very interesting as the student trustee is talking about Bullying Prevention Week, because as she was going through her list, I see that exactly what was happening here. The action was not stopped. Nobody named it, explained the hurt and harm was not done. It was fluffed off as a joke. Ask the person to change their behavior when the person won't even acknowledge or take responsibility for the error. Think before you speak, and support the person who was harmed. I got no support. The students, I'm not sure at McCrimmon School how much support they got, but I was vilified by this action. So it's quite interesting that this is Bullying Prevention Week. How ironic. I would like, for the record, that to ask this question, because I'd like an answer, if the Integrity Commissioner has any training on anti-Black racism. She had refused, she had answered certain trustees' questions. Again, she refused to answer mine, but I'm going to ask it for the public record, because she brought my character into disrepute, and she said that I was silent. I wanted to ask her if she tried asking her assistant how many times I've called her office and I have not gotten her, and I've left messages. I also, when she, with suggestions that were made, I do not, to put me in hurt and harm, because people may not value my mental health, but I do, and I will not go into situations that's going to cause me anguish and mental distress. So I have to think of my health and protect, because I have 4 children to live for, and my husband. So, also, was the other question I had? I asked that one already. Yeah, and my also question was the fact that as a trustee, if you are on vacation, I was wondering if it would be acceptable for a trustee to behave or say a racist comment in public and they say that, oh, they're on a vacation, it's okay. Because people all over the world, in Canada, in Brampton, could be across the world. If there's evidence of they saying racist or hurtful things to people, they are dealt with accordingly. So she's not here to answer my questions, but I feel I need to raise them. And I want to say, especially to all the young people there, that although the board supported this motion, I want you to believe, to truly know that you are valued, you are special, and you deserve the best education that you're legally entitled to. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Marchant?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank all the trustees for their support to me as I've gone through some grieving over the last period of time. It was appreciated and helpful. In terms of the matter before the board tonight, I'm disheartened on a couple of things. One, I don't think this issue needed to get where it got to. And I think as a board, I'm actually going to welcome the ministry's review to come in. Hold on. No, please. One, we don't need applause here. We're speaking on our job. We need you guys to hold your decorum. Sorry, that's the chair's job, but please.
It's fine.
We have, I've seen bad behavior on both sides of this issue from many of the trustees. As trustees, we're sworn to work within this board, within the rules of this board. If we don't like the rules on this board, we have the power to change them. For trustees to go outside of this board and undermine it, I think really does a disservice to every student and staff out there in Peel. And I don't think it's doing much to help our community. At the first meeting I was at where this was raised, we certainly had a lot of community members who were vocal and wanted to have a forum to discuss it. I would like to know from the director, have we scheduled more meaningful formats for the communities to have a say? Because although it's nice for you all to come out here, these board meetings aren't really built for an immediate response to the kind of feelings and emotions I see here. And I'd like to have that kind of meaningful platform if we could. And what's being done to schedule those?
Let's hear from the director. Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Absolutely. Although we have not scheduled the actual dates for those forums, our first and most important step is to honor the voices and the work of our We Rise Together Community Advisory Committee. Also our employee resource group, PACE, and there are members from these two groups that are coming together with us on Monday, November 25th to plan and to coordinate. We need to start with their voices to determine from them, as they do represent our parents and our community advocates, to hear from them what is the appropriate steps and the steps we need to take. We also have trustee representation at this planning meeting, and our intent is to move very quickly to multiple opportunities for community forum and community voice. Really looking at community engagement, but most importantly, taking it beyond just words to actions in accordance with what we're hearing from the voices of our community.
Thank you, and again back, thank you, Director. Could we also ensure that we make sure that there's a strong ability for students to have a voice there? Because at the end of the day, it's their experience and their education that I think we're all here for.
So, sorry, and through you, Chair, yes, we do have, we will have student representation in the planning, but also in all of those forums. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I'll probably just leave it there. And again, I didn't want to give the impression to anybody from the community that you're not welcome to come out here and speak at board meetings. I just think there's a much better format where we can engage you much more meaningfully if we give you the right format to be heard and to be responded to. As opposed to here where it's mostly we get to hear you, but I don't know that you necessarily get the satisfaction of a decent answer and a decent involvement. And I think we need a much better community involvement, judging from the outpouring of angst and feelings and support for these issues. It's obviously something we've done a very poor job on in this board of engaging the community to let this issue, whatever the issue was and the legitimacy of it, but it's obviously sparked some feelings and created an outpouring of legitimate concern for how we're dealing with certainly our young black men and women in our board, but I think it probably goes to other marginalized students as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Andrews? Trustee DeCroop?
Thank you, Chair Cameron. I just want to first start off by addressing a comment that was made during the previous exchange that I almost missed. Something around, having someone, I think it was in reference to me having ill feelings or some negative feelings towards the trustee that my colleague, and I just want to make it very clear, I absolutely have no negative feelings with Trustee Davis. In fact, most of my interactions with him have been pleasant. And I just want to make it clear that I don't believe that he created systemic racism. It's an issue that's existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. My concern was with the report, and as an elected official, as a trustee of this board, I have every right, in fact, I have the duty to look at reports and really, read them thoroughly and raise questions and concerns as they come up. I was hoping to see some solutions put forward, and unfortunately, that was not the case. What I was hoping to see, really, I think one of the solutions to all of it's not really a solution, but it's something that we obviously need to do, is that I think the entire board needs to undergo some anti-discrimination training with a focus on anti-black racism. And I think we need to do that immediately. And I really don't think that, honestly, I don't think there would be that much, that many people opposed to it. I know during one of the meetings, Vice Chair Lawton kept referencing that we had only a half-a-day training. And that is true, we did. And that's unfortunate that we only had a half-a-day training. I think it's something that we should have every year, and we should have multiple days. And it's something that we should have an anti-Islamophobia training. We need to really embed all of the anti-oppression information and the cultural awareness that we have learned over the years into our work and maybe perhaps our even trustee orientation. When somebody gets elected, they show up, we tell them, this is your seat, go right ahead, congratulations. But really, we should be providing people with more focused training on how to serve a community, how to conduct themselves in public. This stuff's not easy. And we don't know how to do that. We're not born with these kinds of skills. And I would be willing, I tend to think of myself as somebody who understands anti-oppression, but it's something you learn more every day. And I'd be willing to join my colleagues. It doesn't need to be a punishment. It doesn't need to be, okay, we're going to single this person out and send them to a training. I think we should all do it as a team. And I'd be willing to do that with my colleagues. So that's one. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and my apologies, I'm losing my voice. I want to sincerely thank Minister Leche for taking a closer look at this, for taking the issue of anti-Black racism seriously and appointing reviewers to investigate and give recommendations on changes that need to be made to systemic practices. This is about system issues. This is not about individuals. And yes, individuals make mistakes. And yes, there are ways to deal with mistakes. And perhaps that should have been dealt with from day one in better ways. But there are real systemic issues. There are practices that have existed for years and years and years that need to be changed, that need to be examined and looked at. And I also want to thank him sincerely for stressing transparent governance in his statement, because it's something I've always strived for, and sometimes even got criticized or complained about for something as simple as asking for a recorded vote, which I think is important. I believe that all votes should be recorded in a democratic society, but So yeah, a big thank you to Minister Leche, and I look forward to working with the reviewers. I look forward to working with my colleagues so that we are able to move forward, so that we are able to build an education system that is worthy of all of our communities' trust. People send their children, which is their most precious, it's the most important thing you have in your life. It's your children, it's your grandchildren, your family members, and that's what we are responsible for. We're responsible to build a great future. And we cannot do that if we do not step back and say, what do I not know? And how do I learn it? How do I get there? And I think together we can get there. But it cannot be by just saying, oh, this was just a joke, or this was not an issue, or this, we don't have quorum, so we're not going to come to a public board meeting. We need to be able to move forward, and I think one of the ways is that if we all commit to attending more thorough training in terms of anti-oppression, anti-discrimination, and cultural bias. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sohi. Oh, I'm sorry, before you, Albir. Vice Chair Lawton, we're moving this way. I'm sorry. Vice Chair?
No, thank you.
No questions. And if you activate your microphone, we'll get it started for you. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. And I do acknowledge that we all, as a board, welcome Mr. Leche to come in and then look deeper into the board and to help us with this. As a community representative, it's our duty to engage the community and to look into the deeper concerns. And absolutely, we need more work. More work needs to be done on anti-Black racism and all the other marginalized communities as well. And make sure that we listen to them and we are equipped to really culturally competent at the same time to understand the barriers and to bridge those barriers, and at the end serving the students and making sure that our students succeed, and then there is a student success that we are focusing on. My apologies for not being available for the last meeting because I had some professional education night that is mandatory for us to attend to renew my professional the license. I also would like to thank our Associate Director, Mark Herman, because this is a week that we are looking deeply into the bullying and going out to the community, talking about the policies and community outreach on bullying awareness and prevention. And I'm really thankful to our communication team for choose action to stop hate. And this is really important that we are have a deeper knowledge and we are together working with not just the school community but with our parents at large to give that message and how together we can have a positive environment for our kids. I also want to talk about the 550th birthday of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the first Guru for the Sikh community. Everyone celebrated their birthday, and there are so many celebrations, and a lot of schools are doing food drive in honor to his birthday and his values of giving back to the needy. More than 20 schools are participating in this, and then also community leaders. There's the one person, Mr. Dully, who actually announced 13 scholarships to 13 different high schools of Peel District School Boards, where the scholarships will be given on the graduation to the kids, the criteria which will be around Guru Nanak philosophy, which is very parallel to what we teach at Peel District School Board. The character attributes, the caring, inclusion, equity, and all those where we spread love and we talk about how above all we are all just humans. There is a one God and we are all creators of that one God. So I again say we are all here to work together to our common goal, which is student success. And I hope with the minister coming in and with the more deeper understanding, we will be moving into a right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Davis? Trustee Benjamin? Yes.
Through you, Chair, I had written a lot of things that I wanted to share, and I'm just going to talk about a few things from my own personal experiences. At the outset, I would like to acknowledge all the members of the community who are here for taking the time and the effort to attend today's meeting. Thank you, one and all. You have started a dialogue, and I understand where it comes from. I am a woman of color. I come from a country, India, where we have so many differences. I've been born and raised there, and I understand what it means, what discrimination is about, what differences are about, and this has been happening for the last 5,000 years in India. On a personal note, I came here 20 years ago. I've been a teacher all my life, and I too experienced racism or discrimination both at the Dufferin Peel District School Board and at the Peel District School Board. I have my own experiences, but I personally am a person who believes in being proactive and positive in my approach, and I always followed the protocols. If I had problems, I followed the protocols, approached the right persons, and tried to address my issues in that way. I know that from the last two meetings, not only the community, but even the Board of Trustees have been affected by how things proceeded. And I think there is some kind of a gap, a communication gap, and maybe that aggravated the situation. On December the 3rd, I will be completing 1 year in office, and I have learned a lot through this journey. To me, this issue is not only about racism, equity, and inclusion, but it is more about our duties and responsibilities as trustees and as elected officials who oversee places of learning. In my opinion, it is implicit in our job description as leaders to be role models. Our trustee handbook and code of conduct not only provide us with a roadmap of what to do as trustees, but also guides us as to how to do it. And we are learning on the job. Some of my fellow trustees did mention that we have these trustee information sessions. It is an ongoing thing, and I'm quite sure at the end of the 4 years, I will be still having many of these orientations. I'm more interested in promoting the climate for learning initiatives in our schools. I would also like to work with my fellow trustees, the director, senior administrators, superintendents, principals, vice principals, and staff from top down to promote the great policies that we have in the Peel District School Board. Equity and inclusion needs to become second nature to us. Human rights need to be respected and adhered to. Safe and accepting schools should become the hallmark of the Peel District School Board, and prompt resolution of issues in a fair, just, and equitable manner is the need of the hour. We must practice zero tolerance to anything that is negative, demeaning, racist, or inequitable. As I mentioned earlier, my personal experiences in the workplace did not allow me to cloud my perceptions or my behavior. I sought help, I followed protocols. Right now, I appeal to the community to work, to continue to guide us, to continue to tell us what we can do to make it better for our students. Also, I seek your help to work together to support and promote the mission, the vision, the values, and most important of all, our strategic priority, that is student success. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Mcdonald? I do want to say a few words. Certainly thank you to everybody for taking the time, making the commitment to be here tonight and to help us. I think it's pretty unanimous around the table that we are happy that the ministry is here, that the ministry is going to review the way we do business, the way we treat people, the way we interact with people, how we establish relationships, and how we help students in particular to be successful. When Vice Chair Lawton and I wrote to the minister's office to ask for them to come and help us, it was sincere and it was difficult to do, because when you do that and you're in leadership positions, you're admitting that things are not good and that you need a government arm to come in and support you. So while we're very happy that the ministry is coming, we're sad that they have to come. And I want to say sincerely that we're going to work together. We're going to get better. We need to. I just want to share a bit of my own personal story. I've taught for 37 years at Centennial College in Scarborough, and it was the greatest job I've ever had in my life, and I just recently retired. But in the last 5 years at that college, my chairperson asked me to come to her office, where she said to me, "I want you to mentor a new teacher who's coming to our school, to our department." And she said he's from Zimbabwe, and he's a scholar at risk. And this chair could have picked over 200 faculty to mentor. And for 5 years, I did that. I'm born and raised in the inner city of Toronto myself. It's not a comfortable place to come from where I was, but I'm here today. I will move to item 11, which is public question period. And before we begin with public question period, I will remind everyone that Section G10 of our bylaws states that public question period will be limited in total to a maximum of 15 minutes unless extended by the chair at their discretion. So G11 notes that questions raised during public question period are expected to be issue-based and respectful. We will work with public questions in 15-minute intervals. So this is what I'll do. After a 15-minute period of questions, depending on the number of questions still to be raised and on the time available, I will decide on another 15-minute extension. We'll do this until such time as all the questions have been answered or time becomes a factor. If at the end of this agenda item we have unanswered questions, the public can attend the next board meeting to ask them in public session there. Make application to present a delegation at a board meeting, or email your questions to me, and we will attempt to answer it back as soon as possible. I'd like to call on Mr. Voucher as the first. Yes?
Thank you. I just wanted to put a motion on the floor to allow question period to be extended until all the questions have been answered, as we have always done since I've been a trustee for the past 5 years. We have been here almost at midnight listening to other issues that were concerning the community. So I would ask that we don't change the rules of engagement now when the Black community is here trying to get their question answered. Thank you. So I'd like to put it on the floor. Thank you.
I did call for a seconder, so it's not a second until it gets called for. Okay, second it. All in favor? let me see hands first. 1, 2, 3, 4. In favor, all opposed? Sorry, not me, with hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion fails. So what we will do is go back to the model of G10 of the bylaws that says the discretion of the board chair, and every 15 minutes I will review. So Mr. Thatcher, will you come forward, please, and start our question period?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I alluded to in the my delegation, I think there has been some confusion in regards to the public and, in the media as to why the last meeting was canceled. So just to restate, the official press release that was dated November 8th states that the meeting was canceled due to the ministry's review of the board. But the Toronto Star had quoted a quote that's saying that the board had already planned on canceling the meeting before this announcement. So would you be able to clarify that to us here today?
So I'll do my best. I was on personal leave at that point, and I think I shared that with you in our email communication. But as I try to catch up to the facts, the ministry review was the key factor,
right?
Although we could have mentioned the lack of quorum.
Okay.
We kept in mind their inability to attend was each trustee's private business. And as we discussed by email, that isn't something we could ask trustees why they're not attending. They're not obligated to tell us. I had already, certainly in advance of that, notified that I was not available, and some others had as well. And it had to do with stuff outside of the board office. So it could have been both, that is true. But the fact that we didn't have quorum, we had to announce that and move forward.
Okay. I thank you for your response, and obviously I received a response from Trustee Benjamin as well. I thank you guys for responding. I have one more question, a couple. I don't want to take too much time. I don't want to take away from anybody else. What's the procedure when the Integrity Commissioner has finished her report? What's the procedure of her notifying the board? Is she bound by confidentiality? Does she have to follow a certain process?
Sorry, when she completes a report?
Yeah, when she completes the report, is there an official procedure that she has to follow to notify the board?
So that's a good question, and I would say this is new territory for us. We've never had an Integrity Commissioner, let alone a report. I would ask if the director is aware of what the process is once the report has been completed.
Okay, so I guess through you, Mr. Chair, could I ask who on the board was notified first that the Integrity Commissioner report was completed?
So I believe I was, and I believe the director was at the same time.
Right.
That the report had been completed, along with in an email to say she wants this to be brought before public session immediately.
And on what date, to the best of your recollection, was that?
I don't have recollection as to when that was. Just that we discussed to act on it as we had been requested to, and then looked at the calendars and found, as we talked about earlier, a date where we could do this.
Okay, so you have no specific idea of, well, I guess I would just give the opportunity to anybody else on the board if I can ask a question to any of the other trustees.
So you would ask through me. I will ask the director if he has any recollection as to when that arrived.
Sorry, through you, Chair, just to answer your first question, and I actually would have to give you a more fulsome answer, not tonight, but all of the particulars around the requirements for the Integrity Commissioner in terms of when she would report and how she reports and what types of reports come forward to the board are all clearly articulated in the trustees' code of conduct. You'll see a section in the last part of it that speaks specifically to the integrity commissioner, her duties, responsibilities, and how reports come forward. So there's a fair bit of information there, and it's very dependent on the type of report, but you'll find all of that on our board website.
Okay. Mr. Voucher, if I could maybe help with that. I think that's a good question, and we should be able to find the answer for you. We just can't find it in our brain right now. But if you were to give that to the executive assistant, I think it's fair enough to say you started out as a delegation, and we will get that answer for you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Coco Lorraine Vera, mother of Jordan Vera. I spoke in front of the board a number of weeks ago and was assured after telling the story. I'm happy that you were... My son passed away. Many of the board members knew my son, Jordan Vera, who was a student at McCrimmon. Him and I both taught at McCrimmon as motivational speakers and corporate trainers, just to give you a bit of a background. I asked at that time, at that board member meeting, if we could follow up and have a community engagement, a conversation where we would be able to discuss these issues in a way that wasn't in this particular setting because of the rules and regulations that bind us. And as of, well, I did receive a call from Director Joshua, Mr. Joshua, thankfully, after a newspaper article was released, but I did not receive a call from the administrative staff who took my information or anybody from the trustee board leadership. I believe that the chair at the time assured me that I would be getting a call. And I was wondering, through you, Chair, why wasn't I given a call before yesterday by the leadership in the board, or at least by the individual that I gave my phone number and information to? Why wasn't I called sooner? It was hard for me to come up here and talk about my son. He just passed away in June. And I feel that it was lip service. I did hear from Trustee Greene the moment I emailed him, and I got a chance to speak with Trustee Mcdonald and Trustee Decorum. But I was expecting to hear from the leaders of the board, and I was wondering if you could answer, Chair, or maybe get back to me in a timely manner why I wasn't contacted sooner.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I can ask if there's an answer on either side of me, given that you had made the request specifically of them.
I understand. I've already spoken to Director Joshua, and I really appreciated the fact that he took the time and called me right away. We had a great conversation on the phone, and I appreciate that. I wanted to actually hear from the leadership board leaders why I wasn't called, because I was assuming that the trustee board members were going to call me and move forward with what we requested in a timely manner. So I'm not sure if that can be answered, or was that just passed on to the director? But I really am hesitant to hear the same answers that I heard yesterday that we are going to get to you. And it was weeks that passed, and I quite frankly felt like if that story didn't matter, my son and you know, me standing here as a concerned parent and as an advocate and as a person who's worked with the Peel board for over 10 years, if I'm not getting calls, then how are we saying that we're moving forward in a timely manner to provide solution if we can't even give someone like myself a call?
So I'll ask Vice Chair Lawton to speak to that, if she can.
Thank you, Mrs. Vera. I
Thank
was
you.
chairing the night that you spoke about your son and that you made that great suggestion. I have brought it up at our executive meetings, and I know that the communications department, as well as the administrators and the board, have been working to organize the first of these sessions, the working sessions, to establish what you suggested. And I apologize. I thought they had been in touch with you.
Okay.
That was my mistake. I'm sorry. I asked how it was going.
Right.
I asked if I could be part of it.
Right.
There's been a lot of work done on it. We have a lot of people. There's a couple of people here who have been contacted and asked to attend. And I'm sorry. I did think someone else had been in touch with you.
Thank you so much for your apology. I was wondering, another question through your chair, is why is it that for this meeting that I suggested that we have that the, well, no, I'll accept that answer. Another question I have, what is the significance of the board accepting the report? I don't know, I quite understand that. I know that the report is given, and I think from what I heard, the Integrity Commissioner mentioned that it wasn't necessarily going to mean that her report was true or false, but what is the significance when you're voting and you're accepting? What's the significance of accepting the report, just so that we can understand what that means? Because it looked like, from our vantage point, that even though there was disparities, thank you. It's hard for me to stand here and talk. That there were disparities in the report, that when you accept it, it seems as if you're approving or that you agree, and what have you. And again, it not necessarily focusing on intent of a comment, but rather the significance of how the comment has impacted the community. So what is the significance of the votes to accept or not?
So the understanding we have, again, this is new territory for us with a report like this, that the sole purpose of the vote was, if it was to be received, is that report would become part of the minutes of tonight's meeting. And that becomes something that, as well, now that it's in the minutes, that can help us start to move forward because of some of the evidence and some of the discussion that the Integrity Commissioner had. It is not I think we were sharing this earlier, but when we voted on it, we were not voting because we agreed or disagreed with the report. It was to receive it, if that was the will of the board, to receive it for the purposes of having it recorded as in the minutes for tonight's meeting. Director Joshua, any difference to that?
And what is the significance of us, if that's the case, then it's just for a matter of record for the minutes, why were some of the board members so disapproving of that and decided to vote against accepting the report? What is the significance of the vote against? Because if it was just a matter of accepting it into the hands of, into the minutes, then why would it not be accepted? Is that a question that could be answered?
It would be a question that could be answered by the people who chose not to accept, not to vote to receive it.
Thank you. So when a report has recommendations that are action items, it would come before us for approval. That's when we would discuss the action items, we would discuss the report, and then we would be carrying on to do something afterwards if it passes. If it fails, it means it didn't pass, and then we wouldn't be doing anything. When a report comes for receipt, it's because there's no action items. So what happens is, if it does pass, which is what happened tonight, it would be recorded as part of our board record, our minutes. It would be, posted on the website. It would be something that we received. The reason I voted against receiving it or chose not to receive it is because I was not satisfied with it. So if 7 of my colleagues, if 7 of us had voted not to receive it, this report or any other report, it would have meant that the board is not satisfied with this report, and then I guess we would have had to come up with another something else to say to the Integrity Commissioner, go back and redo the report, or hire someone else to do that. I don't know what would have happened, but the point is, when you receive something, it becomes part of our record, and the reason, and it's not that you agree or disagree with it, because there's no recommendations to move forward, but it's really about am I satisfied with the information that's been provided to me? And I, in my conscience, could not be satisfied with the information that was provided.
Thank you. Is it okay if I ask one more question?
But just a second. Two things. One, we're at 15 minutes, so I'm going to authorize a second 15-minute period starting now. And Trustee Mcdonald. Okay, Mcdonald.
Yeah, thank you. I also wanted to, I'm compelled to respond because I see this solely, instead of an investigation to what occurred, as an attack on me. And I see, and for me, based on experiences that I've been going through recently too, I find it's almost like the individuals are weaponized to try and target me. I have had complaints about me being jealous of people. I'm not sure how, and that's a complaint that's being entertained that taxpayers are paying for. When I started out in June, this did not have to reach here. If I simply was listened to and given a chance to express my concern with the comment, all I wanted, one, was an acknowledgement of how hurtful that comment is, which I still have not gotten, and as far as I'm concerned, has not been given, because it was a pun by a very jovial person. So there's no acknowledgement as to the hurt and harm such labels have. Even in 24, that's why I did not receive the report, by naming other schools and minimizing calling a school criminal, or what I heard and what was actually said, which was criminal. Again, I find it minimizes it, and it's astounding that our colleagues can sit here and would receive that. They talk about in 39 about saving about the complaint protocol. The Integrity Commissioner is not a free service. It's an expensive service, and I didn't think one was warranted to spend taxpayers' money to just simply address the facts. And all I was asking for was that we get anti-Black racism training, anti-oppression training, and anti-bias awareness training to understand the impact of our words as trustees. I didn't think we had to go through and spend all this money. So I'm really interested to see what our bill is for simply trying to get an individual who is supposed to be representing the public to understand that words have impact, right? And again, the impact on our community is minimized by this report, and that's why I would not receive it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know our time is spent, and I would wonder why we weren't given adequate time. That's another question. Also, does the board understand that when we use words like McCriminal and we criminalize our students, the outcome for Black students is pretty impactful, particularly by evidence of the young man who recently lost his eye when the police assumed that he was a criminal and trying to get into a car, and they beat him allegedly and took his eye, or all the Black children like my son who have been stopped by the cops because they assume that he's a criminal. I get that maybe the intent wasn't to cause harm, but the harm is caused because we understand that when we are criminalized as a people, the outcomes for Black students are far worse than any other type of person on the planet, because they are then they are criminalized, and their lives are hanging in the balance. Their eyes are ripped out of their skulls, and I don't mean to get emotional. I know that people would prefer decorum, but here's what I'm wondering if you understand the impact that word, regardless of intent, because I've worked with schools for 27 years, and I have yet to see teachers who do not care. I've yet to work with trustees who do not care. I've been with the board for a long time. I have worked in almost all of the schools across with anti-Black racism training. I've done workshops with anti-bullying, character education, Black history assemblies, programs for girls, working with girls who are raped and traumatized. I've worked with teachers and principals. Some of them are sitting in this room right now, and I know that their hearts are in the right place. But we have to recognize at some point that the word McCriminal, when we understand, this is I know you have to make it a question, we understand that the word McCriminal, when we criminalize Black youth, the outcomes are worse, because there are people who do have bias, who don't have necessarily a good heart, who do mean harm, who will literally hit them with baseball bats and take their eyes out. And that is the significance of why the community is so enraged and so hurt and so in pain, because when we recognize that simple word, the word that may be a joke to some people, was not a joke. Every time my son would call me and say, "Mom, I got stopped by the cops," with tears in his eyes, and he started having an asthma attack because he knew that he could be in trouble by the police because they assumed he was a criminal. And this is what anti-Black racism training provides. It's an understanding. I don't think the public is looking at anybody in this room, maybe they are, and saying that you're racist, but racism is a system, and prejudice and implicit bias. So when we use words like that, do we understand the impact that those words have, regardless of intent? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
To the members of the board and each and every one that are here this evening. Well, I must tell you who I am. I am the victorious woman of Ontario, and my name is Dr. D.V. Brown. I'm also a psychotherapist doctor. I work with the youths in the community. And I just would like to add to something this evening, that since racism is on the rise, we have more Black children with mental illness. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. There is not a day that I do not get a call from parents that their children is going through something because of racism. Another thing that is affecting not only the Black children, but all the children in the schools is bullying. And I think you have to step up more to put that bullying under control. And we would like to see more training for our children to show love to each other in the schools. Am I correct? To show love to each other. And another thing, in the school, we would like to see the teachers not segregating themselves from the children when bullying is going on. Because a lot of our children are suffering in the days, and you do not know. So, this evening, I said I am coming to this meeting to let each and every one know that bullying is on the rise. It's not like before. There is a lot of bullying going on. And I only have 2 minutes. I don't like to go over. You know, a lot of bullying is going on, and it's affecting the children, not only the Black children, because I get calls from every culture. So please look into this in the schools and see if something can be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, welcome.
Hello. My name is Kumar. I hope my voice doesn't break up again today. Now, first of all, welcome back, Mr. Cameron. At the August board meeting, the last meeting you attended before you went on some kind of leave, a Black trustee who should really get a school named after her talked about the systemic discrimination in the board and was silenced by the board. Your response, Mr. Cameron, to her was in an angry, non-jovial tone. Do you think it is appropriate for any board member, let alone the chair, and a white male to yell at a black female trustee who asked questions about systemic discrimination.
So, some time ago, I sent Trustee K. Mcdonald an email and copied all of the members of the board, indicating that I had heard the audio and agreed that I had raised my voice, not yelled, but I'd raised my voice. And that I included in that email an apology, along with an indication of two things. One, that when I got back, I would leave her a signed copy of that apology. And secondly, that I would come to a regular meeting of the board to express my apology in public session, which was where I had made my mistake in the first place. So, no, it was not right. And sir, if I could do it over again, in retrospect, listening to that, I said, no, that's not who I am. I don't do that to people, and I certainly shouldn't do it to my colleagues at a board table. So I apologized, and I will be doing that more formally at our next regular meeting of the board.
Okay. Last thing, Integrity Commissioner Cody, who is not here, how would she feel if somebody calls her Becky? And that's it.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Give me one second. All right, so hello.
Hi.
Yes, really, there was nothing much I could say about the finding of this report. Personally, I felt it was comical. It did not appear to treat the readers like, especially like someone like me, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but it did not treat us like we had any intelligence or comprehension. I feel as if the report thinks that we were born on Stupid Street and Idiot Lane, and the report should be presented as something worthy of being, it didn't appear to be worthy of being presented to a school board, but almost submitted to Netflix for a Dave Chappelle comedy sketch. With that said, on that question, I wanted to know, did the Integrity Commissioner even bother to approach most of the Black students and brown students who would most likely be impacted by, the aspersion of the school being called criminal, especially at the school? Did she bother to do that? How do you go? Through you, Chair?
Yes, so I understand from one of our delegations, that question has been posed, and because it was a delegation, it will be recorded for a response, and so we are going to get that from the Integrity
Okay, perfect.
Commission.
And now, it goes now to the next thing. In the report, there was a claim that because the offending trustee is of partial Japanese heritage, that he cannot be racist or have any racist intention. Now, with that same logic, a farmer should feel comfortable letting a fox into a hen house because it is not a wolf. I'm sure you would agree that if a farmer was to do such a thing, you would assume that the farmer is an idiot. Now, one must also take into account, and I'm going to refer to even Mahatma Gandhi himself, in his fight when he was in South Africa, he did not fight against apartheid because he identified with Black South Africans. On the contrary, he fought because he did not want his fellow higher caste Indians to be associated with and treated like the Black South Africans. So therefore, his fight against apartheid was not because he wanted equality for all. His fight was not being treated like the one he deemed lesser than. which is also similar to my fox. You know, foxes don't identify with chickens because they eat them. So, like I said before, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not that sharp, but would you agree that it is possible to have anti-Black racist tendencies and still be a person of color because we are not all a monolith? Through you, Chair, that's how it goes. Would you agree with that?
Could you say that again?
Oh, yes, of course, I can. So let's start again.
No, just the question, sir.
Oh, okay, sure. So I just wanted to know if it is possible to be a person of color and still have anti-Black racist tendencies. Through you, Chair, of course.
Sir, I'm not Black.
Well,
I can't answer that question.
Okay, then we'll go back to I know white people love animals, so we'll go to the chicken and the foxes. So based on that, if a fox and a wolf, if a fox does not identify with the wolf because the wolf is an alpha predator to the fox, do you think that the chicken and the fox would feel comfortable? Do you think the fox identifies with the chicken? Like I said, you're not Black, but you're white, and we know you love animals because I see it on Facebook. So use that analogy.
You're
not a farmer, or you just don't like animals? You have a dog?
I live among the farmers.
Oh, you live among the farmers, so then you should.
But I'm
sure
not a
you-
farmer.
Oh, you're not a farmer, but you lived among farms. Do you like to hunt? I know white people love hunting. All right, okay, we'll move on, because, yeah, it's going to be a long night if I still ask you questions. All right, I have another question that might be a little easier. Also, when I looked in the report, it appears that the Integrity Commissioner partook in a very highly intensive Olympic-level effort of mental gymnastics that would rival Simone Biles to exonerate the offending trustee of Brampton Wards 2 and 6. The beautiful somersault to change the spelling of the aspersion of McCriminal to McCriminal, I guess I'll call it, to justify his actions and indemnify him while casting doubt on the trustee who called him out shows a lack of integrity. As I am a private citizen, if I was to call the PDSB the Pathetic District School Board or the Pretty Dumb School Board or the Pathetic Douchebag School Board, you would agree that you would find that offensive, right? As a representative of the school board?
It's a rhetorical question, sir.
Oh, I'm glad you asked, because that's how it feels to be Black like me. Okay, so if you are aware through you, Chair, that it is offensive for me to insult the PDSB in such a way because of your tender feeling being hurt, how much more do you think it would feel for our community when our children are criminalized and we as a Black community are dismissed and ignored? Through you, Chair. I'm just trying to see if you got that empathy in you. Come on now, work with me.
I think we agree 100%.
Okay, very good.
That it is offensive to a community to do or say anything that makes them feel criminalized.
All right, good. Now I have another question for you, sir. This is my last one, I promise. Now, in regards to my question, I'm just not, this might be a case of statistics. I'm not too sharp, but I like to read and look at numbers. And I'm not sure if the honorable trustee who lovingly called us criminals is aware that we're the largest portion of his Black and brown communities lie in which ward. Do you know if he was aware of that? Or
I don't know if he would be
okay,
aware of
because
that.
I ran the numbers and statistics with regards to his victory, and the ward that he criminalized is the word although he won the overall, he won the trustee position, the word in which he lost happens to be the word that he criminalized. Therefore, his insult will be remembered, and I will also personally ensure, because I love to look at numbers, that he is not back in 2022. Now, what do you plan to do, even with this glorious report that was written by someone that also I see in her background went to both Osgood and Harvard and should probably get her money back? What do you plan to do to ensure, through your chair, that Our community is treated
Point
with
of order,
respect.
sir.
Oh,
Sir,
my apologies.
One moment, please.
I'll
What is the
withdraw the
point?
question.
With all due respect to all of our questioners, our staff work hard. They are professionals.
Okay.
If you have concerns about the staff or their work, please put them in writing and submit them. This is not a format for people to come up and
Okay.
cast aspersions upon anyone.
Okay,
The community, but particularly not amongst our staff.
Okay.
And particularly not amongst staff who are not here to defend themselves.
Okay.
That is not the purpose of this forum. And again, I just caution people here that we're not doing, the purpose here is to hear you out and answer your questions and hopefully bring some serious weight to this concern. Not to further drive division between the community and the staff we're going to need to rely upon to help find the solutions.
Oh,
So
okay.
I really do call upon people here. I hear the anger, I hear the hurt. I really want to get to some solutions here.
Okay.
But if we have questions, if we can please refrain from insulting individuals.
Okay, then I hopefully that will also, in the long term, be reciprocated onto us collectively as a community. Now, my final question was, what do you guys plan to do to ensure that our community is treated with respect? And I do apologize for hurting your feelings. I know it is hurtful. What will you guys do to ensure that the PDSB practices the value for the diversity that it claims to preach and appreciate? If you guys can answer that question, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask the director to again share with the room what our next step is with respect to community meetings across our board.
All right.
Thank you.
So through you, Chair, the intent here is to absolutely recognize the impact, the hurt and harm, and address marginalization and the oppression of our Black students, our families, our community. We do need to step up and listen and engage our community.
Sorry.
But more than that, we recognize the importance of accountability around that engagement, that it can't simply be holding meetings to listen to people talk and then not do anything about it. So that is our commitment to you. We need to recognize the value and importance of our Community Advisory Committee through We Rise Together, where we have members not only of our parent community, as I mentioned, but also our community agencies. And we need to recognize that we need help to work together to move forward and absolutely address and move forward so that we can eradicate anti-Black racism and racial discrimination across this board.
All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm representing the Congress of Black Women. And what I see here tonight is the epitome of anti-Black racism. A Black woman raises a concern she has about a comment that was made by a non-Black person, and she's made to feel like she is the villain. So what I'm wondering, is it not all trustees' job to empower, as was stated earlier, to empower the Black communities and the students in the communities that you serve? Through you, Chair, that's a question I'd like you to answer, please.
The answer is yes. That is part of our responsibility.
Okay. So then why is it that one trustee, in this case, Trustee Mcdonald, is vilified for raising a concern, but that everybody should have been concerned about? She raised it. Why is she over and over again, since this incident occurred, made to look like a villain? Through you, Chair.
So that is not the position of all the people around this board. There is not an intent to vilify, in your words, anyone. If you're taking that from the report from the Integrity Commissioner, that's a separate, perhaps, sentiment that you're getting. But in the around the table here, I don't think there's anyone who wants to vilify another person. And if there are misunderstandings, however, around the table, we are admitting that as a board, we need training, we need help. We've invited the minister to send in reviewers to get sets of eyes on how we are doing business. I said it earlier around things like establishing relationships and working with each other in cultural fluency. And we admit that we don't need 2-hour courses on these things. We need full days. We need more fulsome coursework so that we could understand how we are impacting all of our communities.
Thank you. You say one thing, however, and you do something completely different. I don't understand all the logistics about accepting the IC report, but when the majority of you seem to be accepting that report that exonerates Trustee Davies, that does not seem to me like a group of people who are willing to do the things you've just stated you're prepared to do. Through you, Chair.
So I'll speak for myself. I don't believe accepting the report exonerates Trustee Davies, that he is still responsible for what he said and still responsible for the hurt and harm that was created in the community. And the report, now that it is being received, not approved, but received, is now in our minutes that I'm really hopeful the ministry will come in and take a look and put their eyes on that as well, and it will become a jumping off point to give us some feedback and direction from them. It's now a document in the minutes.
Okay.
And, excuse me, what is it?
A big part of why I chose not to receive the report is that specific section about schools being referred to as pot credit and Meadowvale, and how, because students come up with those terms themselves, that, it's a pun, and that's why I had such a hard time with that. And now part of our minutes is that we've received a report that essentially says, because teenagers assign negative terms to their schools, that it's okay for everybody else to say them, and then the entire public is going to see that. And I've actually brought it up previously with administration about even potentially changing the name of Meadowvale Secondary School. I'm very offended by the term. As a Meadowvale resident, I'm very offended by the term Meadow Jail, and I did not want that in our minutes. So, I wish we could go back and re-vote on it, but it's not something that we just want to put out there to say, this is the state of the world and we should all just accept it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of accepting the report, whether you agree or disagree, how do you accept a report where the Integrity Commissioner claims that she interviewed a number of people, yet none of them were identified? Where else in the world could a report be done where it is accepted and yet the people who were interviewed were not identified, and it was already established by her refusal to answer the question that neither Black students or Black staff at that school were interviewed? Through you, Chair, please explain.
So we can't answer for the Integrity Commissioner, but she, I think at some point in that report, talked about confidentiality of not identifying people by name or other identifiers. And so, again, I can't speak for her, but you'd have to speak to each individual trustee to ask them what was the premise for them to accept or not accept, but to receive the report. I've shared mine that I wanted it on record in the minutes.
And finally, your student trustee talked about the bystander effect. This is a classic example of the bystander effect. I feel that your accepting this report is an indication that you lack care and concern for members of Black communities that are present here.
Thank you.
And Director Joshua mentioned We Rise. I am one of the members on the We Rise committee, and now I do have serious doubt about this board's ability to facilitate a program that will change the impact that Black students, particularly Black male students, are having. I have no confidence in the Board of Trustees, and you guys are the people who who are leaders in this board. And I have lost faith and confidence in your ability to adequately service the Black communities. Thank you.
Thank you. So just before we say hello, sir, that was two 15-minute periods that went by. And so we will start another one right now. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Warren Salmon. I'm the president of the Ontario Alliance of Black School Educators. We received the responses to our delegation at the last board meeting, and the responses are under review by our board. On section 28 and 29, on page 13 of the Integrity Commissioner's report, it's made reference to the denial of ONABC delegation due to it being late, a late application as per section G2 of the PDSB bylaws that stipulated that it must be submitted to the director's office at least 5 business days before. The Integrity Commissioner made no reference to the bylaw G5 that states individuals or groups wishing to delegate with less than 5 business days notice may, with permission, the chair's permission, be heard on a 2/3 majority vote of the members present when the agenda for the meeting is approved, which did not occur. It happened on that day. Now, through the chair, did the Integrity Commission advise the chair, vice chair, or any other board member to deny or defer the ONABC delegation on October 10th, 2019?
I didn't have any discussion with her about that, and at that time I was on personal leave, but no.
And the vice chair?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, the question is, did the Integrity Commissioner advise the vice chair or any other board member to deny or defer the ONABC delegation on October the 10th?
So the term is defer, not deny?
I said deny or defer, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
right.
That's
Sorry.
what I'm saying.
Right.
That I did not deny the delegation. I asked that the delegation be deferred. The Integrity Commissioner did suggest that I was interpreting the bylaws properly.
Okay. But there's no reference to bylaw G5.
No, there's not, and it was my mistake. I should have let Trustee Mcdonald speak to her point of order when she made it at the time. That was my mistake.
So why, do you have any idea through the chair why the Integrity Commissioner advised you to not follow the bylaw, the other bylaw?
Point of clarification. Excuse me, sir.
Thank you for all the questions, and my apologies for interrupting, but I just want to have a better understanding of what happened. So the advice you received from the Integrity Commissioner was about that particular delegation or in general delegations?
I didn't know who the delegation was.
Okay, but you were specifically, like you were asking about the October, like that day.
Yes.
Okay, because my understanding was that it was about just delegations in general. So the reason why I'm asking is I'm quite concerned about how much involvement the Integrity Commissioner has in our day-to-day governance. And I'm not saying that Sue did something wrong. My apologies, Vice Chair Lawton did something wrong, or I did, or the Integrity Commissioner did. But I just can't understand. We've been doing this for a long time. Some of us have been here longer than I have, and I just don't really understand why we would need to go to an external body to. Yeah. Anyway, just that was my point.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm just saying that it gives the appearance in terms of questioning the integrity of the Integrity Commissioner and of the board when the bylaws are not followed, and when 2 weeks prior to that, it was stated that there was another delegation that was accepted on short notice, and also was stated by several trustees that in their 6 years and 16 years of experience, they have never seen a delegation denied. So that's, that's a major concern, and like I said, it can serve to undermine or appear to undermine the integrity and trust of the board and the Integrity Commissioner. Now, the Integrity Commissioner report failed to factor in systemic and disproportionate criminalization and discrimination experienced by members of the Black community, by law enforcement agencies, the judicial system, educational institutes, and other institutions in our society, and the sensitivity of the community to the comments made based on these anti-Black racist experiences. Does the chair and board understand that this lack of connection in the report can serve to undermine the trust and integrity of the Integrity Commissioner and the board, since the board accepted the report within the, with respect to the community?
I think we've been clear to say that we understand the community is not happy with the report. The community is not happy with the comment made that started this investigation, and that the members of the board have an understanding of the hurt and harm that this has caused, and that we are going to work together to be better, to ask for help. We have already asked for help. We need to improve, and we recognize that we're a long way away from really being able to say that we're in a better place.
Okay, thank you. Next question is related to page 31 of the IC report. Training was highlighted to support the trustee in question knowledge on anti-Black racism in the form of WRT half-day slideshow given by the staff located at each school. So my question is, what are the qualifications of the people who delivered the training pertaining to racism and anti-Black racism?
So that would be an administrative question. I wouldn't know that for the instructors in my schools, but maybe the director knows more specifically, broadly.
Yep, through you, Chair, I'm happy to ask Associate Director Graywell to just speak to the qualification of the individuals on our team who are providing that training.
So first of all, through you, Chair, I'd like to just seek clarification around the actual training that the community member is asking. If this is the one that's around Aylesbury, that's in the report, is that the one that you're talking about?
It was referenced on page 31 of the IC report. Training was highlighted to support the trustees' knowledge on anti-Black racism.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, again, through you, Chair, the training that took place at Aylesbury Public School around We Walk Together, the Equity Summit, was not just anti-Black racism training. It was workshops provided for staff. It was professional learning after school. There would have been a number of workshops, including a session on We Rise Together, but there would have been a session on LGBTQ identities. There would have been a session on the Indigenous Education Action Plan. There would have been a number of sessions. So that particular section, at this point, I would not be aware of who actually led that particular session. But again, to make it clear, it would not be considered anti-Black racism training. It would be considered a workshop around our We Rise Together action plan.
Okay, thank you. And the IC report also stated that the trustee received training from attending the PDSB Equity Summit. From my understanding, the Equity Summit focuses on a variety of equity issues, and from our understanding, the Equity Summit is organized by the PDSB, who may or may not be knowledgeable around anti-Black racism and systemic racism. Based on the so-called training of the board and lack of knowledge that's supposed to help dismantle systemic racism, what are the next steps of the Board of Trustees to gain back the trust from the Black and South Asian communities? What will it take for the trustees and board to see the flaws in the system so as to change it?
We know that this is a long hill for us to climb, We have this meeting starting Monday where we have a very large group of membership and really quite representative of our board. I'm attending it. I want to be a part of the solution. Where the job is to come up with a plan to have community meetings so that we can hear from people in the Black community across the region. So it's Brampton, Caledon, and Mississauga, and we want not only to hear from them, but also to have them help us develop plans so that we're dealing with racism, we're dealing with prejudice, we're dealing with discrimination, and we're dealing with things like the slippery slope. This is how I learned this a long time ago where I came from. Labeling is a slippery slope start. Labeling can lead to stereotyping, and stereotyping can lead to prejudice, which is an attitude towards other people. And prejudice can lead to discrimination, which is a behavior, which is an action against people because of their race. And I want to bring those lessons from my life into this kind of meeting on Monday so we can get started. And I also want to hear from other people about what ideas they have and how we're going to get to this. It's not right in any school for anybody to hear a pejorative name about themselves. That's the label that starts the slippery slope. And that's why I would tell you, sir, no one here would have ever heard me say a pejorative name calling to any other human being. Had it myself, called to me, but I know the slippery slope, and I want to be a part of the solution. And the whole board needs to be a part of that. We talked about training. We talked, Trustee Decorum talked about wanting to open this up, much more training for us, and I commit to you that I'm going to join to be part of the solution.
Okay. And the last question, what's the best way for questions about the Integrity Commissioner's report and for the Integrity Commissioner to be submitted?
Okay, that's a good question. Again, newfound territory for us. Does anybody have an idea? I'm thinking that if you were my representative, sorry, if I was your representative, if you had children in one of my schools, that I would want you to send that to me, to then allow me to get it into the system and get it into administration's hands for action. But trustee, sorry, let me hear the director speak to.
Sorry, my only quick comment is that the information on the Integrity Commissioner is on our board website, and any member of the public can pose questions or contact the Integrity Commissioner directly.
But does she have to respond? As we saw tonight, she wasn't, going to respond to certain questions.
Apologies, I can't answer that question for her.
But that is why, sir, I'm suggesting you would want to use your political representative to help you maybe move that dial.
Can we do it through the chair, or?
No, I'm suggesting through your trustee.
Okay, I don't have a trustee.
Oh.
May I do it through the chair?
Then you can send it to the chair.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
If
yes.
I may just kind of explain my understanding of how this process works, and I've had to ask a number of people to explain to me. So my understanding is that our Integrity Commissioner is an independent person that the board has hired, so kind of like an independent contractor. So I think the public can contact her, but I think in terms of filing complaints against any of us, if you think we're doing something that's not good, and then she would investigate. I think if you had concerns about the report or anything, that would have come to the board, because the Integrity Commissioner, while she can investigate, she has to bring recommendations to the board. The board is the only actual authority. So the board, if there were sanctions against any of us, if there were any recommendations, if there were anything, the board, as the 12 trustees, with a vote, is the only actual authority of actually doing anything. So I think your concerns would be best served, like Chair Cameron mentioned, is through a trustee or the chair of the board, as it is something that would have been voted on, just like anything else, in terms of French immersion or busing or whatever it is. Okay?
Okay.
But you can contact her. I just don't know if she has to respond.
Right,
I don't know if she does. Thank you.
The contact, sorry. if I
Yep.
could Just add to that.
Hang on. There you go.
Yeah, as Trustee Decorum mentioned, and just to finalize that, so any contact with the Integrity Commissioner, any member of the public or staff otherwise, it would be in reference to concerns you have about the trustees, individual or collectively, the board. That is when you contact. Any other concerns you have would be with the trustees, and in your case, through the chair.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, I'd like to say that I'm happy to see that the ministry will be getting involved, so I applaud your efforts on that.
Sir, could you wait one moment, please? Trustee K. Mcdonald would like to share.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I have spent quite a few hours over the past couple of days speaking with the ministry with the process. So I would like to suggest too that contacting the ministry with your concerns, even about this whole process with the integrity, is a route to go, because there may be suggestions of other ways how the integrity commissioner position could be filled, be it centrally from the ministry, or so you can talk to them about suggestions and concerns with the report. They have created a confidential email, so we have discussed the process, how it's going to work. I will confidently say to the community that I have full confidence in how the process is going to work. It will be totally anonymous. They're actually working with the Freedom of Information Department to ensure that names, whilst your testimonies and experience will be FOIable, for want of a better word, so you can freedom of information that they will safeguard your personal information. So they won't be able to, no member of the public or reporters will be able to, or employees, anybody will be able to find out who has said what. They have a website, it will be posted on the board soon, but it's pdsbreviewers@ontario.ca. That's where the public can raise your concerns. So, and it says, like any questions you have, and again, it will be on websites, so look to see the process will be outlined to the community too. So you can sort of look out for that on social media, on our websites, and in community newspapers. And they will make sure that the process is transparent and confidential.
Trustee Mcdonald, can I just get Director Joshua add to something that you just mentioned, Director? Yes.
Actually, not much to add. Just want to confirm that the ministry will be, has confirmed that they will be providing us that information to post. So you'll see that tomorrow, as Trustee Mcdonald did mention.
Okay, and with respect to the timelines of the review, is there any idea about the timelines?
So all the information around the timelines, et cetera, this is the ministry's review, so they'll be providing us all that information. What I can tell you is that we're receiving all of that tomorrow, and we'll be posting it. So as Trustee Mcdonald mentioned, look for that. I can't give you a guaranteed time, but it will be in the morning. That's been my guarantee. And outlined in that will be timelines for the review, the report that they'll provide, and also the contact information, et cetera. There's also, they'll also, as they've indicated to me, provide some information around confidentiality, et cetera.
And will there be any information on the actual reviewers, do you know, or is that?
That will come as well, as I understand it. I'm not certain that it will all come at once. We'll post what we get as we get it, but it'll certainly be on our website.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Before you go, just let me announce that's the fifth 15-minute cycle we've been through. We'll start another one right now, and Trustee Mcdonald hasn't. Yes.
And I just have 3 other quick things to add. I was informed that February 28th is when the report should come to the public. So they'll be investigating, and then the intent is February 28th. Also, there'll be 2 reviewers, and they will announce the names tomorrow. And the other thing I wanted to share was, for confidentiality, the process, so teachers won't have to, let's say, be, and they really want to hear from staff and the community, but teachers won't have to be released from schools. So they're going to work around teachers' schedules. So in the evenings, mornings, if it's better, weekends, it won't be in school buildings, it won't be at the board office, it's going to be at discrete locations. So it's really important for the public to be aware that it is totally confidential. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I just have a couple of questions. I think that within reference to the report being accepted today, the signal to me, at least, and I maybe will put this to you as a question, does it not signal to the general public that what was sort of the content of the report? Because I don't think the concern is really about the fact that the findings. It was really how the commissioner really came to her conclusions, that they sort of hinted and sort of even brought up things that I really wasn't aware of, including the names of other schools that she mentioned, was really just perpetuating a problem that we already see, which is that the school name was sort of changed to make it very, unprofessional, but also targeting a specific group of people. I'm not sure how while we've received that report, how that actually helps us, given the fact that the report didn't actually really address the issue that we were talking about, at least not in a way that helps us in any shape or form. Would you find that that's the case? I mean, could we not have come to a better conclusion or the conclusion without really mentioning those things and maybe having the commissioner rework her comments on this?
So I suppose she could have. It's speculation on my part because I didn't write the report, and I've never heard those school names in my life either. And so how or why she put them in there would be for her to answer. And
My question for that, just I'm asking you the question, and through you, the board in general, why we have accepted the report in its entirety now, rather than having it go back with the concerns that, mentioning these names now being on public record, people not even knowing those names now know those names and maybe even perpetuate that now in those schools. I really have a concern that we put that on the record now. I really wish that we had gone back and said these are unnecessary. They really don't speak to the concern that we're raising, which is the conclusion that we came to. And again, I don't think it changes the conclusion. And I think, again, she could come to the same conclusion that she's come to, which is respectful, whatever she's done in that regard. But having those names put in on record, it seems to us, or seems to me, that we've almost accepted that those are the names that that's been happening. So I don't think we should have it on our record, and maybe that would have been something that would have been considered by this board, and hopefully can be considered again because everything's amendable, and maybe we can look at those, the procedure to have that amended again and bring the report back and see if we can actually vote on it again, given the fact that these names in there might be discriminatory to other schools who are not involved in this issue. Is that possible?
We'll take that under advisement because, as I said, we've never done this before. This is our first report ever to receive, and and we can.
Chair Cameron, I know that we've already received the report. I know we've already made it public. I know it's already out there. But again, I am very disheartened by that particular section about the names of the different schools. And I wonder I don't know if this is even possible, or if this is even allowed by the bylaws, but could it be that section could be redacted so that we're not perpetuating stereotypes, so that we're not, in our minutes at least, so that we're not perpetuating labeling as you talked about? I wonder. I don't know. That's just a question.
Yeah, I'll just ask our parliamentary assistant, could you answer that question?
So that's part of her report. It's not part of the minutes. It's part of the agenda. It's not part of the minutes. The minutes will refer to the report. It's not going to mention the names of the different schools, and that would be the process.
So is that what she's, through you, Chair, is that what's being proposed in that case, that not to include the actual report on the minutes?
It could never be included in the first place because we would talk about the discussion on the report, but the discussion would be a general discussion on the report. The report is the report.
Yeah.
It's the Integrity Commissioner's report, and we cannot change that for the minutes.
Right, okay.
Through you, Chair, is there a possibility to now reopen that sort of debate and bring that back and see if we can sort of, express those concerns to the Integrity Commissioner? Because I'll just give you an example. Coming to this location, I mean, I can GPS the fastest way to get here, and I can maybe GPS the worst way to get here. I think that the Integrity Commissioner, while arriving to her conclusions, which I respect, I don't think that she's arrived expediently. She's actually perpetuated a divide which is already existing in this board. And I don't know sort of how she knew that, so we've sort of had some hints of that. But it seems to me that there's a divide that's sort of been created that she perpetuated as a result of adding more names to the issue, attacking a specific trustee. I believe that was the case, looking at the actual report. That's something that did happen, and I think as a solidarity event, that would have been something to actually point out to the IC. But also the fact that we're paying for this thing. And I imagine that it's going to be a lot of money. I wish that we can get something reworked and better. If it's going to go on the record anyway. And I understand that it has. I just think that for us to have a symbolic, sort of gesture to say that it was not right to, first of all, put out one specific trustee for bringing up the issue, and two, that it wasn't the intent to find out what the other names of other schools were, hence this is okay, or this was just one of those things as part of the lexicon of people. I don't think that we asked for that, and that wasn't really something that should have been in the report anyway. But again, she's come to her conclusions. I don't think that that would change it, but it would be symbolic for this this board to respect its people and also its own members as well.
Okay, we'll take that under advisement, and we have heard that the report has been received, so it is a report that has already been received. What you can do is what we heard from another delegator around an opportunity to share with your trustee your frustrations with that point in particular that you've made, and have them speak on your behalf. Or, as Trustee Mcdonald had suggested, use the ministry avenue now to express your concern about the way that was written.
Fair enough. Again, I think that it was important, and if we can, I don't think this should be a dead issue. I think whether the ministry gets involved or not, that's not Brampton, that's not Mississauga, that's not Caledon. We're talking about, and I am talking about, you as the board. Whether you agree or disagree with the findings, I think that coming to the conclusions that we came to, how she arrived to those conclusions is a concern. And that's what I'm trying to address. And I think it should be personal to us. And I will make sure that we have representation on our part. But you, as the board, to show solidarity regarding this issue, to address the concerns that are being raised by the community, which is what you're here for. With the Integrity Commissioner, I wish that you had actually rejected the report in that regard, because it would have signaled to her that it wasn't right to come to those conclusions the way that she did, not the fact that she came to the conclusion itself, which is her prerogative through her independent, quote unquote, suggestion. So I'll leave that to you. I think that there could be, I know that there's a way to work around the reports being received. Maybe it's something that can be done. The other part is that with in reference to the code of conduct, the Integrity Commissioner worked with what she had. And what her maybe concern is, and she's an adjudicator, she's only working with the laws she has. And I will tell you that your laws are weak, hence why this is actually allowed to happen, where there was no repercussion as a result of what she said. Would the board commit to amending the code of conduct to reflect further or more strengthen the code of conduct when it comes to somebody making comments on vacation or outside of the specific quote-unquote job? That would you put more repercussions into the code of conduct by putting in amendments to stop these kinds of behaviors and at least have more repercussions so that the integrity commissioner, when they do those kinds of reports, they can come back with saying that they have violated even for the fact that it was a joke?
Yes, so the Board of Trustees has a responsibility to write that code of conduct, to approve it. And so that question you're asking is something that is available for all of us to have a discussion when we don't even necessarily have to review it, meaning we don't even necessarily have to wait to review it. We can make changes anytime throughout the year to a code of conduct that we might like to add sections, we might like to delete some, we might like to reframe things, and so that is doable. And I think that's a good idea for us to have on record, and it will be on record, for us as a board. But that would be a board decision, sir? It's not one individual?
No, I was just asking for a commitment, Chair, from the Board of Trustees, because I think that everybody sort of agreed that what was said, including the trustee that was in violation, I'm not sure if we're allowed to name them anymore, but even they agreed that there was a violation that took place, and I despite the fact that the integrity commissioner said otherwise, but I think that if you all come to the same conclusion, then why not sort of strengthen those and say that there should be better, more accountability from anybody what they say, and that they face the music a lot earlier.
Thank you for the suggestion. We're going to make a I'm going to make a commitment to bring that to the Board of Trustees for a finer look at the code and for discussion about your very point.
Thank you. One last thing, within reference to, I've been looking at sort of the We Rise Together initiative, and it was something that was very innovative, but there's been some changes in reference to and some problems in regards to the leadership that's been involved with that. And I think that there was some conversation about having, community involvement and whatnot. But there's been a sort of a divide within reference to the leadership role of and I apologize to both the director and the associate director, but I understand that there's an actual report, human rights report that's been filed.
So, sir, that's a personnel matter that we're not talking about in public.
But what I'm saying, so if I can just relate that, relating that back to just those discussions. I mean, when we have those problems, how serious should the public take, the efforts of the staff who are sort of in conflict right now, whether that's really resolving that conflict first, and then coming with a genuine sort of agenda. Is that?
The personnel matters need to stay private within the board. We're not bringing them out into public for public discussion.
And I just want to be very, very clear, and maybe I'm not. I'm not talking about sort of the reasons as to what the internal matters might be. What I'm trying to say is if there is an internal matter that's existing, to have then the public sort of understand that there's going to be a wholehearted effort from all the staff members involved with the conflict in place. I don't see the integrity part of that for the public. When they're viewing this issue, I don't know if they see a strong leadership when there's a divide in leadership. Should that not be first resolved, the actual complaint, and then sort of come back to these efforts, and so that we know that they're more genuine and that they're not sort of in just just to go through the actions of the report, or rather the initiative itself?
No,
Is it-
no, it just.
So the internal matter should,
It's an internal matter that has to stay internal. I'm sure for many people
it's a
who.
public matter, so I just want to, I know that it's been said before last meeting as well, it's not, it's actually a matter of, that's been filed with, I believe, the Human Rights Tribunal, I believe, which is actually a public entity, so it is an internal matter.
It's an internal matter being addressed within this board. And therefore, we're not privy to a lot of the details in private matters like that. And we have a responsibility to allow it to play itself out.
Okay, I'll yield on that. Everybody sort of said that there's some training in reference to, speaking about anti-Black racism. But you have someone who sort of experiences anti-Black racism on your board. And I find that that person gets shut down a lot on this board. And I don't know if you understand that person can actually provide a lot of information. You know, it's one thing to get training, but maybe having that person lead the board itself through the problem that we have here, because as you guys were actually voting, I don't know if you noticed, but except for one person, you're all white, standing up. And the optics of that, whether you agree or you don't agree, the optics of it are the problem. And what's happened is that nobody's really consulting with, the trustee that's involved in reference to this report. She is your expert. She is somebody who can sort of provide some insight to the colleagues on this board, and her sort of being someone who can provide that insight. I don't know if you need more training if you can't even listen to somebody. Let's not pay for more training. Somebody who can provide you that information. I happen to know Trustee Mcdonald, and I can tell you she's taught me a lot of things, and I believe that she can teach a lot of you a lot of things as well. And I don't mean that by any shape, manner, to be an actual offensive thing. I believe that there's other strengths in other trustees that can bring forward, other skills, and that other trustees, including Trustee Mcdonald, can teach can learn from other trustees as well. But my point is on anti-Black racism. She poured her heart out, reading a report that I was here to preview to listen to, but I didn't see anybody flinch, and I think that somebody actually made a mention of that there was no reaction from people. Again, I think that you have somebody that's an expert there. Please use them as a resource, because I think, yes, you need training for sure. I need training, but she is somebody that can give you her life experience, which is important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So welcome. Just before you begin, I want to let the audience know this is our 6th 15-minute startup, and welcome.
Thank you. I just have a question for you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to know who exactly the Integrity Commissioner is accountable to, because it seems as if she has no one to be accountable for or to.
So the Integrity Commissioner is accountable to the Board of Trustees.
So yourself?
The whole board. She doesn't answer to me. She is an independent arm, as we've said, but she is responsible for being accountable to the Board of Trustees, all 12 of us.
Okay, thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
it.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sky, and I just want to start by saying that I am a proud graduate of Meadowvale High School. I've lived in the Peel area, so I've been born here. I am a mom of 3 sons who are all proud students of the Peel District School Board. One attends Mayfield, One attends David Suzuki, and one attends Sir William Gage. I am also a teacher now in the board since 2001, and I teach at the Roy McMurtry Youth Detention Center for youth who have been incarcerated and are in there for a variety of crimes. I do have only one real question to ask. My biggest thing in the board is that I want to see my sons grow and be proud of the community that they've been raised in. I want to see them be proud of being a graduate of Peel and to be able to come back and give back to the Peel board. And I want to be able to continue my career here and hopefully one day retire and be able to have a legacy of what I've done within this board and this community. What I do have a question about that I'm most concerned with in what I see and where I teach at the Roy McMurtry is a lack of hope. And as a teacher, what I have tried to do as much as possible is to instill hope in what we say is our mandate at the board in each of those students who have been incarcerated with the law. And I try to do the same thing with each one of my sons. So in speaking to all of you guys here and observing what has been happening and knowing that there is a desire to unify our board and unify the Black community, I struggle with the lack of hope that I have for the young people that I teach and for my own sons when there is a blatant disregard for the respect of the community through accepting this particular document, but also understanding the vulnerability and lack of vulnerability that each one of you may need to have in terms of your own views of the Black community. So my question is, what do you want me to do as a mom, as a former student, as a teacher, to allow my sons to feel that I can come home tonight and instill hope in them when I feel that I'm extremely hurt by the response here, and I don't feel that sense of confidence and hope that you mandate within the board by your actions and by how each one of you are talking and the division that is created. So what do you want me to tell my boys and the sons at the Roy McMurtry Youth Detention Center tonight and tomorrow when I see them that's going to allow them to feel some level of hope and encouragement going forward?
I'm not their mom, but I'll tell you as a dad, I would talk to them about never giving up in spite of the hurdles that are right in front of us. I would talk about encouragement, 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 and how it costs nothing to give to another human being, but it works. We know that it works. And that I would encourage you to join us in our efforts to improve what we've talked about, saying, getting to the community meetings once we get them established, maybe bringing your sons with you so that they can have their voice heard as well. And I think we would know as parents to never give up on ourselves, and we would want our children to never give up on themselves.
Okay, thank you. I'm telling you that because I feel like I'm gonna go home and probably be in tears because I was hoping to come back and be able to share with them that, what was shared by the Integrity Commissioner was something that would not be accepted. And also just the fact of some of the responses here, I just don't feel that sense of being able to feel confident in them continuing to be students within the Peel District School Board. And I want that. I do want to see that bridge. So I think I'm a little bit concerned with some of the responses because, when it said, I've mentored a man from Zimbabwe, if I were to say that to my sons, they would be like, that doesn't mean anything. I don't understand. They're not going to make a connection that you actually relate to where they're coming from with those particular comments. It actually makes me feel more uncertain about that sense of hope. So I know one of the things, I just want to see if there's any way that when you're going forward with doing the anti-racism education, when you're going forward with whatever training that the board is doing, I wanted to know if you can make sure that it's extremely transparent and that there is something that can be established that shows that somehow you are working on establishing trust again within the Black community. Because I fear in going home and talking to them and trying to be hopeful, that I'm going to struggle with that sense of trust in trying to figure out a way to make amends with what's happening. So is there a way that, as you guys follow up with the training, that you can definitely make it very public, very transparent, but also be very careful on your own words and actions on what you say even in these meetings, to make sure that you are aware that sometimes when you're trying to explain things, it actually makes it worse and makes it feel more hopeless as opposed to more hopeful. So yeah, so is there a way that that's going to be very, very clearly kind of tracked and progressed? I know Kika Ojo has done a lot with anti-racism education and has written a great document for the Children's Aid Society. I would like to see somebody like her or other people like her. I would like to know who's going to be doing the anti-racism education and what that's going to look like, and make sure that that's very clear, so that hopefully I can give my kids something to actually see that there is a definite understanding that improvement needs to be made, and it first needs to be made internally within each individual board of trustee.
Maybe we could ask through the director or an associate director for a response to who will be doing the anti-Black racism training and who will be involved in the training itself. Who would like to do that? Okay. Let us hear the answer.
So again, through you, Chair, at this point, we just had a We Rise Together steering committee today, and one of the areas that we have identified as a gap is around our anti-Black racism training and professional learning. So once we start to look at what that could look like, we're going to have the community meeting on Monday, and then hopefully some forums, go back to the We Rise Together Community Advisory, because at the end of the day, that's the advisory that holds us accountable to what is happening with We Rise Together. And the hope would be that we would be working with the community to decide who that would be. I've heard the questions a couple of times now around what is the qualifications of those that are doing the training. So that makes me think that the community feels perhaps we don't have the right experts in doing the training, so we need to listen to that. And then we need to work with the community to get somebody in here to do the anti-Black racism training that they also trust, and somebody who's going to be able to move this work.
Okay, Director?
Thank you. Associate Director Graywell hit it exactly. And just in terms of transparency, we will continue to work with our advisory on getting that information on our website. We do have a specific spot for We Rise Together, but we do need to step that up and need to hear from our community what's there that's working, what's there that's missing, et cetera. Those gaps need to be filled. So we'll ensure that that level of transparency is very much there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to activate it. Trustee DeCroop had a point of
request. Just because I did bring up the anti-racism training, and I truly believe in that kind of work. My request is, this is what I do not want to see. I don't want to see us participate in a Saturday morning session for a few hours and then go home and, 6 months later, maybe get back together. What I would like to see is something that's more along the lines of being more immersed in some of the trainings and the materials. Maybe perhaps if we're having a meeting, an info session before the meeting, even if it's an hour ongoing, I think there's way more learning opportunities when you engage in something consistently rather than engage in something for half a day or even a full day once every 3 years. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Director Joshua.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Trustee DeCroop. We've learned from our critical friends like Dr. Carl James that the training and one-shot, one-deal training where you're just checking off a box is not the way to go. It doesn't get to hearts and minds. It is about ongoing conversations, but it's also about looking at measures of accountability. So this is going to be front and center in our conversations through our advisory. Not only what does the training and understanding look like, but what does accountability look like At the end of the day, we need to have a way to ensure that this is going beyond just talk, that it is changing hearts and minds.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. Most of you know my name, Cheryl Woolnough. I'm very disheartened by all of this. I was looking through rose-colored glasses when we had the Integrity Commissioner come in to do the report. But alas, again, we're back to square one, dealing and trying to dismantle systemic racism. What disappoints me the most is seeing those who were in agreement with the report stand up quite openly, and your background, your experiences does not mirror ours. For the mere fact it was openly stated that you all lack anti-racism training, oppression, bias, racism training, is obviously reflected in your decision to reject the report. It's sad that it's very sad to know that those who are actually fighting for what's right are the ones that are being targeted and victimized. But those who continue to press the wheels of oppression and racism and anti-Black racism are protected. It sets a precedent to us in the community, to Black staff, South Asian staff, that we are still lesser than in your minds, and that we are always rejected and never protected. Standing up to accept that report basically implies that you accept the racist, systemic oppression that we continually endure each and every day. My lack of trust has just broken down even more. And seeing you stand up there along with Sue, I really was hoping for more support from you, considering the fact that I thought we had a connection in terms of you working with the boys group and supporting through coming there and talking to them and trying to connect with them. Makes me wonder now if it was just photo optics. It concerns me deeply that you are all elected to serve your community. And those of you who accepted that Integrity Commissioner's report reflects that there's a certain part of your community that you do not care for. Again, I stand alone, representing no one but myself and my students that I serve and support. And again, I put my neck out on the line for my students, all of my students. But this is very disheartening because now it leaves me with what next? What can you all do to really support our Black and South Asian students when some of you actually stood up and have told us otherwise? Mr. Marchant, I thank you for standing to reject that report. You were the only white person there that did so. And it goes to show you time and time again that we need Kathy. We need Noka. Because if we didn't have them, we'd have nothing. And I stand by Kathy. And I stand by Noka. And God bless you. And I will fight for you guys and fight for my students because I as a teacher, am following the OCT Code of Conduct. Who else is around here? Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time, your feedback, your comments. We have it recorded. It'll be on audio tomorrow, likely, for everyone, all of us to listen and re-listen to for the advice, the information, and your sharing. Thank you for staying with us to help us get this far. Item 12, Trustees, is the adoption of the in-committee reports. Vice Chair Lawton, will you put them on the floor? Trustee Davies, will you second them? All in favor? Carried. Item 13 is adjournment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to everyone here for choosing to participate in public education in Peel. We'll be back here for our next regular meeting of the board on Tuesday, November 26th. Trustee Crocker, will you move to adjourn? Trustee Benjamin, will you second? All in favor? Carried. Good night.